Hello, happy Saturday, everybody. Happy Saturday. How you doing? Always a pleasure. We're going to do something different today. You're going to love this. It's going to be a free-for-all. It's going to be fun. This is going to be unleashed, which I'm so excited to do. I can't tell you. Just enough of TikTok silliness. We're just going to let it rip. See where it takes us. I don't know about you, but most people like me, we have to walk on eggshells, right? And I don't know about, I'm just tired of walking across these damn eggshells. I want to just, listen, free speech shouldn't be pretty sometimes. It should be what you believe. Someone can disagree with you, that's fair. But you shouldn't have to control your language and be like, there's certain things you shouldn't say. You shouldn't be really mean to others in terms of unnecessarily using inappropriate terms, as I've been, as I know all too well. But short of promoting violence and giving away somebody's personal information, I don't think there should be anything that's off limits. Yeah, I'm not back. I mean, Hila, thank you for that. Just to let you know, my schedule has changed. I should have reposted it on my main page, but I need to take some more time just to take care of some stuff in life. Like I've told you all, if you haven't heard, I mean, financially, I'm sort of up against the wall, so I have to do less of this and more of other stuff. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm only doing these on Wednesdays and Saturdays now. Unfortunately, I love doing them. I would do this full time if I could. I just can't. And not to mention, there's a personal part of this too. When you're constantly talking about politics, as you may know, there's just something unhealthy about that. I think it's nice to take breaks and just let your mind clear out. But yeah, we're going to do some things here today. By the way, this will be fun. For those of you who haven't been on TikTok before, these lives, we have to completely dance around our language, these silly terms. I'm just not doing that anymore. I'm just not doing that anymore. I'm going to just be real, be straight up and try to be fair, but use real language. And we'll see what happens. Maybe it gets taken down. Maybe I get taken down. TikTok can suck a big one, if you know what I mean. I'm just tired of it. So we'll see what happens. And, I'm not worried about it, is what I'm trying to say. And we should be able to speak freely, right? I mean, what's the purpose of having these conversations if we have to be really careful what we say? I keep saying, and I have some things to talk about Israel today, as I usually do. And I keep saying to people, people say, why are you so critical of Israel? Why do you... Listen, I'd love to say good things about Israel. I really mean it. Give me some material to work with. Do something that's good, and I'll say something good about what you did. But this crap about, don't focus on us. No, I'm going to focus on you as long as I draw breath, because what you do is horrible. And you somehow try to cloak it in these other excuses and we have to protect ourselves and our security. No, a lot of what you do has nothing to do with your security. It's about doing what you can because you can with what you have that the others don't have. So therefore, listen, if I could snap my fingers and have the Israelis come to some sort of sensibility where they would allow there to be some sort of peaceful resolution to this, that'd be great. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Because the behavior that we've witnessed for the last, 75, maybe 80 plus years don't indicate that anybody really wants that. It doesn't serve their interests. From the creation of the state in the initial state to the settlements they're trying to build out to the way they want to try to expel people from their land, all of their behavior, not their language, their behavior indicates a lack of willingness to try to make peace. And you can blame the other side for fighting back periodically and say, well, because what they just did, we can't have peace. No. They wouldn't be doing those things if there were a peaceful resolution. And it's only in the absence of there being any hope for that these incidents occur. And that's what the problem is here, and that most people in America, and listen, and around the world, let's face it, they don't know the context. So it's impossible if you don't know the context of a situation to properly, analyze it and come to some sensible conclusion about how you feel about it. I was watching a great, well, not great, I'd say it was horrible to listen to, but it was very indicative of this with, Crystal Ball from that show, what was it called, Breaking Points or something like that. And she was on somebody else's show on one of these right-wing, right of Fox type of new networks that are out there in America. News Nation, I think it was called. And the guy from News Nation, he may as well have been reading straight from the Israeli playbook. It was unbelievable, like literally word for word. How do they get people to say the same stuff? They must be given talking points because the language is incredibly similar. It's just absurdly similar. And so All right, I want to continue on. First, I want to let people know amount of babies and your children we see every day. I'm not sure what that means. Enos, MD. Anyway, before we continue on, though, I want to get the day started right. So first of all, anybody who's new here, do me a favor. If you're new here, you've never seen me on a live before, can you please type the number 1 into chat? I don't want to go through my background if everybody here already knows who I am. And then while you're here, while we're waiting for that to take its place, could you please tap the screen to like the live? Oh, hey, how you doing, Ladybug? Oh wow, a lot of new people. Hello, Husan, Earth and Heaven. How you doing? User, I can't say your numbers, but welcome. Sadidi Gold loves nails. I think that's what it says here. Oh wow, a lot of new people. Okay, welcome. Okay, well, real quick, I'll do this quickly then. So, my name is Chip Barnes. I'm a former U.S. Army officer who served in the first Persian Gulf War back in 1990. And I was on the ground, on the front lines of the war in a tank unit. And so I'm very familiar with tanks. I was trained as an officer. And so I had to know everything there was to know about tanks, how to fix them, how to fire them, how to drive them, how to communicate, everything and all that stuff. And I had to know everybody else's job because if somebody got hurt, I had to do the job. That's what we do as officers. We kind of make the glue that keeps the unit together. So I know exactly what tank equipment is, what the weapons do, what the rounds look like, what the different machine gun, everything. And what the Israelis have and what they've been working with, especially with this little girl story we'll talk about later. Horrific. These are machines of destruction. Tanks are incredibly destructive with what they call the main gun. And they fire these massive rounds that can either explode on contact or penetrate metal on contact, depending upon which one you put in. And then you have a machine gun. It's a 50 caliber machine gun. We'll talk more about that. So just to let you know, the reason why I got on TikTok, I've always wanted to get on social media. I've been somebody studying geopolitics as like a hobby my whole life. I'm not an expert. I don't have a PhD. And just because I've been in a war doesn't make me a military expert either. I've had people accuse me of saying, I never said any of those things. But what I do say is I'm somebody who's sort of taken a weird track in life, having been in the military, having studied a lot of geopolitics, being an American, but looking at this issue from outside. And most Americans, let's face it, don't look at this issue. So I learned about this issue completely by chance, the Israel-Palestine issue, in 1989. Now, I'm 56 years old, so about 34, 35 years ago, I became aware of what many people have just learned in October. So obviously, I've just been following it, and I've watched the different conflicts that have taken place. I've studied the history. I've read a lot of books. I've watched a lot of video. I've listened to a lot of lectures, all that stuff. And so I think I have a well-rounded perspective. Of course, everyone has their view, right? And no one's perfect, right? Your view is your view. It's your view. I always joke, I've never heard anybody say, hi, my name is so-and-so, here's what I think, and I'm wrong. Like, no one says that, right? But my view is my view. I understand there are other ways of seeing this, and I try to be respectful towards those who see things differently on any issue. So one of the things I try to do differently. No, I'm not 65, I'm 56, but thank you. Thanks for saying I don't look 65. That'd be bad. We can talk about all sorts of political issues, Fatwa. There's all sorts of things to talk about. I'm not as knowledgeable about every subject, but I'll try to listen and learn or do research if I can. So, but getting back to this, I take the same approach to every issue as best I can. I try to be objective, I try to see the behavior more so than the actors, and then try to analyze it from the perspective of who's on the receiving end of bad behavior. For example, the United States, in our history, who was on the receiving end of bad behavior? Well, the Native American population, right? They were slaughtered. They were basically, completely genocided. Terrible slaughter, more so than was done in World War II to Jewish people. And then, of course, their people have been, marginalized ever since, and the Europeans took over the continent. That's bad, right? I'm against that. So in general, I'm against oppression, subjugation, exploitation in general. And everything I talk about is from that vantage point, including in the United States, the working class, right? They're the ones that are being on the bad end of what the policies are today. So that's it. We'll talk about that stuff later, Joe. Let me get through this. So I learned about this. One of my classmates in college gave a presentation on something called the First Intifada, which was the first big uprising that took place in the Palestinian territories back in 1987. And at that time, I was like most people, I had no idea about the intricacies of this conflict. I thought, as most Americans probably did till October 7th, and maybe still do, that Israel's America's friend, It's a safe refuge for Jewish people as their homeland from persecution, especially with what happened in World War II. That there's a bunch of crazy people who happen to be Arabs who are trying to, kill them, terrorists. And I'm speaking freely today, by the way. I had to catch myself. I almost said unalive because I'm so conditioned to speak that way. But I'm going to say what it is. The claim is that all these crazy Arabs want to, put on explosive belts and blow up cafes and kill Jewish people because they hate Jewish people. That's what I was told. And what I came to learn was something completely different. And I was like, wait a second. How could it be that I've always been told this one story, but then there's a totally different set of complexities around this that I had no idea about? And that got me thinking, right? Somebody says, you are wrong. There is no uprising, just pogrom ethnic cleansing. I'm not sure what you mean, Joe. But we can talk about listen, this is the other thing about my way of doing things. And again, you'll see if you watch me long enough, I hope you will. When I bring up guests or if I entertain comments, I don't demean people for thinking what they think. The way I try to go about it is I try to be calm. I try to stay collected. I don't get into name calling or any of that ad hominem silliness. And I let somebody share what they want to share, just as I hope they would do for me. And we can always go back and forth on the merits of the points, right? That's the important thing about having a good, lively discussion, is to focus on the content and not the person's yapping about it. But all too often it gets into people shouting their points past each other and nobody listens. I like to listen. And people say, why are you so patient sometimes? Why don't you kick that person off? I don't believe in doing that. And here's why. Every once in a while, believe it or not, when I listen, I learn something. Either I learn a different point of view to understand what someone else thinks, even if I disagree, or maybe I even learn something factually that I didn't know. And if I close that avenue off, if we close those avenues off and just think, echo chamber, which is what too many people do, you don't learn anything. You never grow as a human. And so my approach is to try to do whatever I can within that to stay calm, be polite, be fair and objective. And nobody's perfect, right? We all make mistakes and we all have our limitations. But with that in mind, that's how I try to steer the ship, so to speak. So if we do have guests that come up today, if they completely disagree, please don't deride them in the comments. I don't believe in that, because anybody in a chat room that maybe be more pro-Israel or pro-Palestine could gang up on somebody who comes in as the minority, right? I don't want that to happen. And same thing, I hope our friends that are pro-Israel, when we come into their lives, hopefully they'll give us the same, respect. For the most part, unfortunately, I haven't found that to be the case, but it is what it is. Anyway, so as far as my journey here on TikTok, I got started about just 2 days after the conflict started. It just coincided. I'd been thinking about doing this forever, but I just didn't do it because I was reluctant to do it. So here we are. So 2 weeks into my TikTok journey, I was talking about, of course, the conflict, and my account got taken down. I was like, damn. So I started a new one, and 2 weeks later, and this was about 65,000 followers or so, same thing, second account, gone. And it was just like, when you first download the TikTok app and there's just nothing there and you have to, that's what it looked like. I woke up one day and it's like, all right, my account's gone. I was like, what? So then I did a third one that lasted for 2 days. That one was taken down. Then I did a fourth one and that lasted for about 2 hours and that got taken down. So I was like, after four times, I'm like, okay, I guess I don't get to use TikTok. And then, of course, for some odd reason, 2 days later, my first account came back, like the one we're on right now. I don't understand how this works, but all I know is this. TikTok seems to be like walking on thin ice on a winter pond, and you never know when you're going to fall through. You just have to hope for your best as you walk across the pond. And yeah, it could be that the Zionist, quote unquote, people who support Israel are mass reporting me or whatever happens. That happens a lot here. I've gotten evidence sent to me where another pro-Israel content creator was telling his people in his audience, go to this guy's, go to my live and mass report the guy. So again, this is stuff that people do here on TikTok. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And, we have to figure out a way, meaning those of us who want to try to communicate as openly and honestly as I can, to find places to land, to be able to speak freely and share what we believe to be truthful. Like I said, no one has a monopoly on the truth, but, a lot of people disagree with me. That's okay. But I think it's important for Americans especially who clearly understand this issue to advocate about it. And as I like to say, it doesn't have to be Israelis and Palestinians, Jewish people versus Muslims. To me, it has nothing to do with that. You could substitute pick any two other countries, Eritrea and Ethiopia, which are next door neighbors on the eastern horn of Africa. And so, it doesn't matter. If this was being done to the Eritreans by the Ethiopians, I would have the same analysis. I would just plug in those names. And it just so happens in this case to be the fact that it's Jewish Zionists who are primarily propelling this, and those who knowingly or unknowingly support the things that are being done towards their aims. Those are the people I'm critical of. And if people don't know what's going on, like in the West Bank and in Gaza, okay, yeah, and they still support what Israel does, that's bad. But what's worse is the people who do know what they're doing and they still support it. That's worse, in my opinion. And so, I try to be consistent, but nobody's perfect, and there you go. So that's kind of a little bit about me, my background. I've been an entrepreneur most of my adult life. I've had different businesses that I've sold off. I do some part-time work doing trading, and then I do this. That's what I've been doing lately. I'm doing a little less of this right now. For those of you who don't know, I was doing 6 days a week, 2 hours plus, sometimes on the weekends, like 4 or 5 hours. And I've decided to do this a little more impromptu because I have some I mentioned I was in the first Gulf War, and I have a lot of health problems with regard to the Gulf War syndrome. You may have heard of that term, Gulf War illness. So I feel bad. I feel horrible all the time. I mean, I feel horrible. Even today, I feel bad. But it is what it is. But the point is, I need to do this a little less than I was doing it, especially because, I've been accused of doing this for money. People say, oh, you're just doing this, you're grifting for money. Well, I mean, put it this way. I think my monthly income from spending about 75 or 80 hours on TikTok, and that's just doing the lives, not the videos I make, just the lives, is about $275. That's what I get paid from TikTok, from my videos and from lives and donations and everything. I mean, who would work a job for 80 hours, 100 hours a month and get paid $275? You'd probably have a hard time paying your bills to do that. Somebody says you do it for attention. Well, Brett, that's one way to look at it. The other thing I could look at is I give a shit about this stuff, right? Maybe it's that I care about the issues and I like sharing information that I've come across with others. And, I would say, Brett, if you look at my history, some of the attention I've gotten has been pretty negative and pretty harmful personally. So I'd be an idiot to do stuff that would hurt me. I would tell you this. I live in a community that is a good number of the population here are Jewish where I live. And if I was going to try to get notoriety or fit in or get money or be accepted or get attention, I would do something pro-Israel because it would benefit me immeasurably. I'd be welcomed into different, there's different synagogues around town. I'd be welcomed in as a speaker. Oh, this is so great. You're supporting the rights, all that stuff. And no, I don't do that. Not because listen, if I believed in those things, I would go speak to them, but I don't believe those things. Right? So if I wanted more attention, I'd be doing this more. I'm doing it less because I have to live a life. Anyway, let's get back on the topics of the day. So I want to talk clearly about language. So language here on TikTok has been sanitized, right? We go on these lives, we do videos, and we're having to use all these. I'm done doing that. Now, I may get kicked off of TikTok, which is, if it is what it is. I do want to let the audience know, if you don't know, that I do have other stuff that I do online. I have a YouTube channel, I have a Rumble channel, and chances are most people who are free thinkers and outspoken people about controversial political subjects like this one are going to get kicked off of places like TikTok and Twitter. Places where a lot of pressure is brought to bear by third parties. This person's got you there, whatever. They try to get rid of people. They try to silence people. So even YouTube has demonetized a lot of people. So I would strongly urge, and again, most people don't do this, but I would strongly suggest that those of you who like to follow independent content creators like myself, it's critical to follow them on other platforms. Because you never know what's going to happen. You could come here and people say, I haven't seen you much. There have been times when my account just goes down. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just like a light switch. And then you'll say, well, I like that guy. You have to follow people. So in my bio, if you're in the United States, there's a clickable link. And it says Linktree Chip Barnes. And if you click that link, you can even do it now while we're talking. You won't lose the live if you just go to my little circle, click on my face, and then it'll take you to my homepage. And then if you click on the link tree, it'll take you to the link tree, but you'll still be able to hear me talking. If you're outside the United States, the link is not there. The one that shows up in the US it's right below my bio. It's in a little bit bigger text, and it says Linktree/Chip Barnes with a little chain link to the left of it. If you're outside the US, I wrote that text in the bottom of my bio that you have to type into a web browser and then hit enter. And there's nothing I can do about that. TikTok will not allow me to place a clickable link because for some reason for foreign followers, it isn't there. I don't know if that's on purpose or if that's just some sort of TikTok technical thing. I have no clue. But my suggestion is that how can you say anything after you guys? Yeah, David, that's a fair question. David says, how can you say anything after you guys, meaning the Americans, finish the natives and the Mexicans? Yeah, listen, I will never, ever, ever say that the criticism that I levy on Israel is unique. In fact, I say over and over again, the way that most lands are currently held are because of conquest, and exploitation of others. And it's a fair point to bring up that myself as a 6 or 7 generations or whatever it is, 8 or 10 generations back when this all took place in my continent, the result of this is a genocide. Right? So how fair is it for me, who's a descendant of genocide, to criticize a current genocide, right? Well, the point is, I'm critical of both, David. I criticize what happened in my country all the time. If you listen to me long enough, you'll hear me talk about it. I said it a little bit earlier. And if you hear what I'm saying now about what Israel's doing, I'm critical of that. It's just because it happened here doesn't mean that we can't look at it where it's happening elsewhere and discuss it as being problematic. And you've heard the term two wrongs don't make a right. Well, it's happened far too often in the world history. The difference is that myself being in 2024, I can't travel back in time to, let's say, 1820 and have a conversation with my forefathers and say, hey, why don't we do this differently? I can't do that. What I can do is speak out with the voice that I have now, with the knowledge that I have now about something that's still happening right now, to try to make a difference and try to shift public opinion to stop it from happening. Right? And I don't know what I would have done in 1820 if I was around. I probably would have been ignored or told to go to hell or told I was a traitor or that I loved bloodthirsty Indian savages or whatever else they would call people that would fight back. But anyway, yeah, you're right. Listen, it is hypocritical for anybody to live someplace on conquered land and then be critical of somebody who's conquering land. I can't dispute that point, David. You're right about that. But what I can say is that the fact that it's happening in current time is what we want to focus on as best we can. Somebody says, have you really looked at, this is Maddie 5906, have you really looked at H group and what they believe? Yeah, Maddie, of course. Somehow people confuse me advocating for the self-determination of Palestinians with supporting the H group that manages affairs in Gaza. Those two can't be lumped together. That's like me saying every single Jewish person in the world supports the government of Israel's bombing of Gaza. Would you think that's fair? No. I mean, people support Israel, but they don't necessarily support the Netanyahu government that's doing all these crazy things. They're not getting the hostages back. They're bombing indiscriminately, it appears, civilians into the Stone Age. They're blowing shit up. They've destroyed the landscape of the north part of Gaza. And yet they still believe in Israel's security. Well, I'm still for the Palestinian people having a peaceful state, but I can be against the more radical version of one particular group doing what they do. Hope that makes sense to you. So, having said that, I've condemned very clearly, just so you know, Maddie, that the actions that targeted civilians by Hamas on 10/7, I condemn. No hedge whatsoever. So to whatever extent people were encouraged to or carried out or did on their own accord, the shooting and murdering of civilians, whether they be men, women, or children, wherever it happened, in a car, in a home, in a kibbutz, in a party, I condemn it wholeheartedly. And we're not clear, unfortunately, as far as exactly what, where, when, and how occurred. There's a lot of confusion as to, what was done by the H group. Were there other people that filtered out from Gaza who were just angry and had a chance to get out that day and they hopped on and did what? I have no clue. The other thing we don't know is when the military responded with tanks and with, aircraft, and they got involved in trying to, deal with that situation. We don't know exactly what happened because of that. And there's a lot of confusion. It appears, as a trained eye from having watched this for, a lot of years, the Israeli government typically will say things in such a way that either overemphasizes certain negative things about their enemy or downplays stuff that they do as far as their actions. And that's the nicest way to put it. Another way to put it is they're total liars. But what we heard publicly in the first 24 hours on this is that the H group, Hamas, came into these kibbutz. They grabbed a bunch of infants and they ripped their heads off and they burned people and they raped all sorts of women, and that they're the most horrific people, the most barbaric people that have ever lived. They have to be stopped no matter what the cost. That's kind of the language that came out. Well, we're learning that a lot of that is in dispute. I'm not saying that I have definitive evidence that I can definitively say that none of it happened ever. I can't say that. I'm talking about the most egregious. I've seen video, by the way, which I consider proof, of the H group going into kibbutzim. I saw a dog get shot, not a person. I saw a dog get shot. I did see people shooting people in cars, and I saw people engaging soldiers. So I've seen those videos. And yeah, if you're a civilian in a car and somebody shoots you who's not, that's terrible. I condemn that. So to whatever extent the leadership said to do that, or whatever extent they did it, that's wrong and just unforgivable, right? I condemn it. However, and I got to say however, if it happens on either side, that's a problem. Here's a bot. Let me get them out of here. If it happens on either side, it has to be equally condemnable. The idea that the Hamas group forces civilians to stay in a location so that they can be purposely killed and bombed by the enemy is absurdity. Think of it for a second. If you're a militant and you have a series of tunnels from which you operate, and you have safety from being bombarded, which is the primary source of your enemy's military capacity at that time. Where's the last place you want to sit? Inside a building that can be bombarded. You may go into one temporarily to do something, maybe to engage the enemy, but if I was somebody who had the advantage of a tunnel system, and I could come in and come up and fire at my enemy and then go back to a safe place, that's what I would do. And you may say, well, how's that considered courageous? You're fighting not giving a fair fight. You're not fighting like a real person. It doesn't matter. They're using the tactics that they can. Joe, somebody says, did you condemn Russia? No, I've not condemned Russia. No, I'm not going to condemn Russia. But let's talk about the subject at hand. So why would Hamas fighters force civilians to stay in a building? The idea from the Israeli side is they hate life. They love death, that they want to make Israel look bad by forcing Israelis to kill their people. That's the party line that comes from Israel. Think about that for a second. Does that make sense? Joe, let's stick to the subject at hand. If you want to come up and talk, we can have you come up. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a timeout here for 5 minutes. And, let's talk about the subject at hand. If you want to come up and talk about another subject, let's talk about it. I'm happy to have you up as a guest. So, somebody's asking me, why would you not condemn Putin? Listen, I'm happy to talk about those issues. Let's finish this one. I'm going to get my notepad. I'm going to write this stuff down. We'll address it. I do not want to avoid anybody's questions because that's not how I operate. But I also can't remember everything every single time. So, let me write that down. So, somebody asked about Putin. Somebody asked about... Okay, I'll make notes of that stuff. So we're talking about Israel, like we all often do. So my point is that rhetoric is tired and old. That idea that this human shields argument is absurd. It's absurd. Now, can I say with definitive that it's never happened where an H group fighter has gone into a civilian structure, a hospital, a school, and either stored some things or fired from someplace or maybe both? No, I can't say that with certainty. What I can say with certainty is that the stuff that we see given to us, the public, as, quote, proof of these things having happened, in many cases, is staged. It is staged by the IDF, the IOF, the ITF, whatever you want to call these people. And it's so incredibly obvious that it's staged, a third grader could figure it out. I'll give you an example, okay, for those of you who think I'm just being, making stuff up. So I have video of this, by the way, on this very phone that I'm talking to you on. So everything I say, I always have video to back it up because I think saying things without video that you can say with certainty is not certain. So I have video that shows this, that shows the Israelis inside of the Al-Shifa hospital in a room with an MRI, magnetic resonance imaging machine. If you know anything about MRIs, you can't keep metal near them. It messes them up. It ruins the machine. So the Israelis claim to have found weapons and ammunition and other, stuff from Hamas that they had used and positioned inside the Al-Shifa hospital, right? And so what did we see? Well, that looks bad, right? Oh my gosh, they are using these places like hospitals. That's terrible. They're committing war crimes by doing that, right? No. This is a staged incident, which Israel does constantly. They constantly come to a place, they stage stuff, they then take video and pictures of it and go, see, we're showing you these people. Well, when they show you the evidence, they're not very careful with how they stage it, unfortunately for them. In the Al-Shifa hospital, the most glaring example of this was they showed what they said was a Hamas laptop that was being used to orchestrate command and control with instructions, battle ideas, maps, this kind of stuff. And they said, this is evidence. We got the evidence. Look, they're planning, guess what? It wasn't a laptop that can work in Gaza. The laptop had a power plug that somebody very clearly pointed, I didn't know this, but they pointed it out to the public. That power plug will not work in Gaza. So what you're telling me that somehow, some way, the H group has electronics, computing equipment that won't work in their own territory as far as powering it. Is that somehow, come on, give me a break. That's absurdity. And then this one of the duffel bags that was showing ammunition and weapons, when they first showed it, it had one weapon inside of it. That's when they first took video and showed it to the public. Then they sent out subsequent videos and images that showed two weapons inside of it. How did the one weapon magically get into the bag? It's because somebody else was tasked with showing the bag and documenting it. After the first people had gotten there, someone said, hey, most likely, go do some more video of this stuff, and they threw another weapon in there not knowing any different. So this is the kind of crap that they do that's so low grade, so poorly devised, so much garbage. That what are you supposed to say about that? Are you supposed to just say, well, yeah, that's proof, right? And this happens over and over and over and over, and I could get so sick of saying it. The history of Israel lying about things that it does, that it says it sees, it always exaggerates what the quote enemy does. Can somebody says, can you provide the link for the donation? Roses, if you go into my link in bio, there's a thing that's, if you're in the United States, it's a clickable link that says Linktree/Chip Barnes. It's like the last thing before my videos. And you can click on that. It'll take you to the place, the bottom of which there's some donation links. Like, I have a $5 a month Patreon, for example, if you want to do that. Or there's Cash App, Venmo, all the normal stuff, If you're somebody outside the United States, the text that you need to type into your web browser is listed in my bio. It says Truth Seeker, Army Vet, Truth Seeker, Peace Not War. You can go right below that. It says Linktree Chip Barnes in text. You have to type that text into a web browser, hit enter, it'll take you to the same links. So that's how you get there. Thank you, Roses. So the problem is that the Israelis have a history of lying. Now, don't take my word for it. Okay, I did a video about this. You can see it, but I'll just kind of summarize. This is paraphrasing. Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, who used to work as the assistant to Chief of Staff, which is basically the assistant to the U.S. Secretary of Defense, George W. Bush. And this is back in 2000 to 2006. And he's somebody who had to engage directly with Israeli officials. Like his job, part of his job was to talk to the Israelis, like to talk about policy, to talk about, security. Now, what does he have to say about the Israelis and truthfulness? His words were, you can never trust a single word that comes out of the mouths of an Israeli official, of their propaganda system. They never tell the truth. They are abject liars. Let me tell you this again. The Israelis are liars. They're liars. This is strong language coming from a former American official, right? So this is not Chip just saying it because that's my point of view and I just want to bash the Israelis. This is somebody who had a direct connection and dealt with people at the highest levels for years, and that was his observation in government. That's a pretty strong thing to say, and if you're a former official, you wouldn't just make that stuff up because you hate the Israelis. You said it because it's your experience, right? So, no, I don't condemn Russia, just to let you know. So I talk about that. I don't condemn Bashar al Assad in Syria. You know what I do condemn? I condemn the U.S. and the Western propaganda systems for creating so much outrage against foreign leaders that's completely based on factual, inaccuracies and anything but reality. Chewy savers. Yeah, so let's do this. Okay, I could talk, like you guys know me, I could talk for ever and ever. I've been talking about 45 minutes or so. Let's bring up a guest here. Someone says they requested Chewy Sith Slayer. Now, just really quickly, just want to let you know how I run my lives. I don't know if you're new, I haven't seen your name before, Chewy. First of all, I don't mute people and tell them not to talk. Here's how I operate, okay? I give people a chance to say what they want to say. If they make more than 3 points in the first little, I try to stop and have a little bit of conversation, but as long as somebody wants to be respectful and avoid name calling and all that stuff, say whatever you want, whatever you believe I'm open to, and I'll listen to it respectfully. Hopefully you'll do the same. I don't like to interrupt each other, but the only time I'll stop you is if you've been going on for more than 2 or 3 minutes, or if you've covered so much terrain, I'm going to forget it. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. Should I just call you Chip?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So I am new, so I don't really know your guidelines, and I can be kind of divisive, I guess is the word. So are you all about stopping the war with Israel and Palestine, or what is your whole viewpoint on the situation?
Well, I would have liked to have prevented the war in its entirety. Obviously, my point of view is that there could have and should have been a peaceful resolution of this decades ago. I really don't think that a lot of this should have even happened. But yeah, I'm all for a ceasefire, and I'm all for there be a peace to, first of all, get aid to the people. That's the most important thing right now. People are really suffering horribly. The people of anywhere in Gaza, there's people that don't have food, they don't have clean water, they don't have sanitation. That's just the absolute basics. But on top of that, I'm for a peaceful resolution. Now, the way it's been framed many times in the public sphere is, well, H group's got to go. There's no way to have peace moving forward with H group in the mix. It's just not possible. I completely disagree. Now, I'm not a fan of Hamas. I'm not a fan of Hamas. I don't promote their tactics. I don't promote their ideology. I don't promote the radicalism within them. What I do understand and I'm sympathetic to is the nature of Hamas with a willingness to resist with means that they think are necessary to try to achieve something other than status quo. I understand that frustration. So with that said, I'm for peace always in every situation, like my bio says. At this point, I think the Israelis have responded disproportionately and ineffectively vis-a-vis their stated mission, which is to eradicate Hamas, which they haven't done very well, and they still don't have any, most of their hostages haven't been released.
Okay, that's fair. So, all right. I guess when I came on, I was thinking you were more weight to the it's all about what Israel's done. But so what is proportionate in your ideology of war? Like, at what point, like, if someone does something, let's say your neighbor destroys your family, at what point, when does it become? Is it when you've taken an equal amount of lives? Is it when you've created an equal amount of damage, or is it when you've rest assured that you don't have to worry about your neighbors taking out the rest of your family?
Well, I think everyone will have their own interpretation of it. I think proportionate, in terms of what the term needs, if you want to just look at the dictionary, means that close to equivalent. So let's say if 1,200 people were killed on the 10/7, that maybe 1,200, 1,500 people might be unalived on the other side that are fighters who were involved in that part of the conflict. But I can also see the rationale that, well, what if others are remaining who might do it again? How can we possibly leave that the way it is? I understand that point of view, and I don't think that's unreasonable. What I do think is unreasonable is saying you're going to try to accomplish goal A while doing a lot of B, C, and D, and calling it sort of unfortunate fog of war or collateral damage, when most people with 2 eyes and ears and a mouth can see it for what it is, which is they're doing what they can because they can, and they're cloaking it in A while they do B, C, and D.
I mean, I think for any war, whenever you got a governmental system that, regardless of whether they're right or wrong, when they go to war with another governmental system, whenever they come into battle, right? I think propaganda is definitely a part. So the idea that you're going to say that, whether it's Israel or Palestine, whoever's creating the propaganda and saying, well, they're creating propaganda and saying, well, we need to keep going forward, and we're saying A, B, and C, but we're really doing D, E, and F. I would say that every government that ever goes to war, that's exactly what they do. They create propaganda, say they're doing A, B, and C, and then they do D, E, and F.
let's respond to that. Okay, so let's look what's happening. Okay, I always like to differentiate between what I call biophysical reality and, of course, interpretation or what do you call it, narrative or angle or take. So what's actually happened? Okay, we know that on the 7th that a group of people broke through a fence. They went into a territory, killed a lot of people. We don't know exactly what role the military played in its response. They took a bunch of hostages, right? We know that happened. So people died on Israeli territory. People were forcibly taken from Israeli territory back into Gaza, right? That's what happened. You agree with that?
Yeah, but and I would just say to make that.
Forget about the motive. That's what happened, right? Bodies were unalive. Bodies were taken. People did it who broke through. That's what happened.
Yeah, basically,
Now,
an entire population of the size of the town I live in was taken.
hold on. Let me finish the thought, and then I'll let you respond. I promise. So what happened since then is that a bunch of airplanes have dropped bombs and destroyed all of the infrastructure, killed over 25,000 human beings as a response, or well, I won't even say as a response. The airplanes have done that. Troops have moved in. Troops have shot and killed a lot of civilians. A lot of civilians have died and gone. So 1,200 people died on one side. That's what happened. People came in and did it from one side. That's what happened. People from the other side then came in and have done those other things. That's the physical reality of it. Now, the rest of it is the interpretation of what happened and why from both ends. Some people look at it as this is an outrageous, unprovoked attack, and therefore any amount of response is justified to eliminate the source of the problem. That's one way of looking at it, and therefore the rest of it is unfortunate. Other ways of looking at it is, hey, our people have been under siege and blockade and occupation for 75 years. We didn't do anything wrong. Yes, we've responded periodically, and that's been cracked down upon. We're trying to figure out anything we can do to get out from under our plight, and therefore our resistance, albeit the tactics are questionable, was necessary and justified according to international law. And therefore the response that's happened has been disproportionate, over the top, has been primarily civilians being killed, with very little of the stated mission being accomplished. Those are two different takes of the same thing that happened. That's the point I'm trying to make. So, So, in your terms, what do you think should be done differently? What do you think should be done differently?
All right, sorry, my mic was off. So I think it's a hard situation anytime you got two ethnicities, cultures, or religions that are basically going to war against each other, which is exactly what we have is all three there. And so the situation we have is that one side, all right, so I take it like this. Like I live in a town that's got, let's say, 5,000 people. And then there's a city about 20 miles away. I live in a kind of a desolate area. And it's got 10,000, okay? Let's say they come over and they go to war against our community and they took over half. And now I'm left with 2,500 and they still have 10,000. Now they've taken my family, my friends, and my loved ones, right? At that point, I think that any idea of like a fair warfare has gone out the field, and for this reason, because I'm not going to trust that the rest of the 2,500 that are left with me are safe until all of them are gone, because I don't know which ones are my enemies. Now they all got to go, right? So that's where we're at. And the thing that, one more thing, and I'll let you speak. The thing you left out, when they,
that's not right.
What's that?
The word right, exclude that word from your thing. You said right. I just say your point without saying right. Right says it's correct. I don't agree with it's correct, but please.
Right. I mean, rights are basically subjective to every human being. Like if you live in an Islamic empire, Muslims have what they believe is a right as far as a man or a woman. The same as if you're in, let's say, a Judaism world or an Israel world, you're going to have different beliefs as far as what you believe is right. So right is subjective to everybody. So, I mean, we got to use the word still. It's something we can still use. Regardless.
So you said the analogy was that if you're living in a town,
right,
and somebody from an adjacent town comes in and unalives a significant number of your population, that you have that. What was the other part of it? You can't rest until the threat of that is gone completely. Is that the idea?
So, like, I actually come from a huge family. So I take it into consideration that I come from a small town with, let's say, 5,000 people. And let's say there's a couple hundred people in my family. Next door is, let's say, 10,000 people. And let's say they come over, and I don't know how many people came and attacked me, but they took over 2,500 of my people away, and I'm down to whatever, 2,500. Let's say if I had 5,000, they took half out. I'm left with 2,500. And now I'm fearing that if I leave any of them there, that the rest of my family is gone or my friends are gone. So now I'm going to push them all out because I don't trust anyone over there. Do you understand that logic or no?
Well, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're trying to convey as logical. I think the part of the puzzle, I think the part of the puzzle of that your analogy lacks is that what was happening in relationship between the two towns before the smaller group came in
You
and did what.
justifying the loss of 1,200 lives right now? Is that what you're doing? I just want to be very careful when we go forward that you don't make a mistake.
No, listen. By the way, I'm a big boy and can protect my own language, so you don't need to do anything.
Just be careful how you word things, because you know what you're about to say, and I know what you're about to say.
Hold on. Listen. Don't tell me ever to be careful with what I'm about to say. That's not your role to do. I'm not going to do it about you. I'm not going to talk to you in that way. That's disrespectful, condescending, and it's bullshit. Okay? We both have the right to convey our opinions and thoughts in a way that's civil and straightforward. So let me tell you what I am going to say right now. I'm going to say this right now. Slow down, slow your roll. I'm just making that clear. I told you about the ground rules. Now, here's what I think is illogical about your analogy. Your analogy excludes everything that happened up until the point of the event that you described. So you're saying, listen, if this event occurred completely out of the blue, like just there was no difference, if people had just been living side by side, no history, and it happened, of course, I'd be right there with you, 100%. So I'll let you know I agree with you there. Now, why don't I agree with you in this situation? Well, the reason is because your analogy excludes the totality of the context. Now, does it justify the tactics or even the actions? No, I'm not saying that that's the case. Anytime civilians are harmed purposefully by any militant group or any military, it's a war crime by virtue of the law. You can't engage civilians because that's against the laws of war. And they did. And therefore, those war crimes should be punished, and the people who directed that and who did that should be punished and accountable. But that same standard has to be applied to both sides. And you can't say because war crimes A and B were committed against my group, I'm going to go commit war crimes C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, the rest of the alphabet, and then 15 more alphabets. You don't get to do that. That's not the way it works. And we have things called international law for this reason, to create standards for which people are held to account for their behavior. Now, it's not always applicable and enforceable the way we'd like it to be, but let me tell you where I think your analogy falls short. And I'm not going to tell you to be careful what you say back. Say whatever you want. Just, let's keep it civil. If there was nothing going on before that happened, I'm with you. There was something going on. If your town of 5,000 people had been having military soldiers occupying the smaller town of 2,000, whichever one you referred to, and had been killing those people periodically and regularly, had been shooting them, bulldozing their homes, poisoning their water, burning their crops, putting in checkpoints so they couldn't move, controlling their lives, making them miserable, spraying sewage water on their homes, raiding their homes at night, taking people there for administrative detention indefinitely for year after year after year, while bullying you into submission, giving you bullshit offers to try to straighten things out. And then they decided to push back. That's a much different story than unprovoked out of the blue.
Well, you're acting like right now, and I don't mean to be rude about this, but I'm just going to be genuine to what I believe. I believe you're acting right now like Hamas doesn't have three leaders that are billionaires based off of financing that was meant for the Palestinian people that was basically generated back to Hamas, right? Are you familiar with this?
What does that relate to the concept?
It has everything to do with it, right? If that money had gone to the people instead of to missiles, right? They literally used 5,000 missiles that night out of the Iron Dome. They had to actually call the American aircraft carrier to bring them more ammunition. Where did Hamas get that kind of weapons? Do you know how expensive one of them missiles is? This matters. You're ignoring the fact that they were literally willing.
Hold on. So listen, you asked me a question about your what was wrong about your analogy. So I answered that. And then I'd like to hear back from you about that first. We can talk about diversion of money, political corruption, the effect that might have had economically that might have prevented some of this. We can go into all that. That's fair. First things first. So let's talk about that first.
All right, what was your question again? I want to be just.
Well, I know you gave an analogy that I think you said was rational.
Okay.
And I let you know why I thought it was not rational, given the circumstances that have preceded what happened on the 7th.
Right,
So
you gave good points. If you left out, but you also left out other things, and that's why I brought them up, right? Because your points would be valid if there wasn't a series of other things, like all of the money that we basically have been given to like Palestinian people in Gaza for years as Americans, taxpayers. right? So the money going there was basically, instead of going to help the people, it was being funneled to these Hamas leaders, these terrorist groups. And that's my point. Like, you're leaving out that aspect and saying Israel's just going over there and dropping these bombs. But there's a very real other aspect that we were helping. We're trying to help these people. And at the same time, the organization, the group, the governmental group they're backing up, was using it as a terroristic means to provide missiles and ammunition to go out and do these terrible things.
Well, they're not missiles; they're crude rockets. It's a very, very big
Okay,
difference.
how much does a crude rocket cost? Regardless, it's a crude rocket, and they're firing them, and it emptied the Iron Dome of 5,000. Is it 5,000 missiles? I believe. Right? They emptied that in one night. How much money is that? That could have gone to help and feed the poor in Palestine.
Well, let's take your logic, okay? Let's apply that elsewhere. So, are you from the U.S.?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Do you know what the annual defense budget is?
Oh yeah, I'm very familiar. It's the size of the next 10 countries combined.
Let's ask that question then about that amount of money. So, why doesn't the U.S. take that money and use it internally to help its population reduce the amount of war around the world?
I don't disagree with you. I was just actually having this conversation with another guy.
No, it's not unique that countries divert money from helping their populace to try to do things to militarize and achieve goals through force.
But that doesn't mean I agree with it either.
It's been
Do you
going
agree
on for
with
a
it?
while now.
Hold on. I don't want to have this conversation, Doc. I'll let you go. So what I'm saying is that you're applying a standard to the people in Palestine that is not anywhere unique to the people of Palestine. But you're trying to point it out as a source of the problems that have occurred in Palestine.
It is
I
a source
disagree
of
with you.
problems for all governments, right? So in America, we use that to back the dollar. We don't back the dollar anymore with gold. We only have 256 billion, I believe, in the Federal Reserve, with 30 trillion in debt. So the 30 trillion in debt is actually backed by the U.S. military. And I don't believe that's right, because that creates what's like a slave labor in other nations that provides resources and goods to us that isn't natural to be had, right? We didn't earn it. Every American is born into the United States with $60,000 to $80,000 in debt before they're even born. That's our debt right now. So no, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, the U.S. has problems like a lot of nations have problems, different types. Ours are myriad, unfortunately.
Right.
I think the thing that I was trying to frame earlier is that the context of everything. This is where it comes down to being an objective analyst of different geopolitical events. Context is everything. The nuance is where it is, not the black and white parts of it. And so it's very rarely one or the other. It's a mix of things. I'm very clear to point out that the different attacks that have been done over the decades by the resistance, or people can call them the terrorists, have not been productive in terms of achieving peace. They've been, I think, a failure, and they've been abhorrent, which has given people ammunition to demonize their position and not let them be able to achieve what they want. In the same vein, I believe that's what happened on the 7th. I believe that too. It's another in a long series of failed efforts to use violence to achieve goals. There is one outcome that's indisputably achieved, though, and that because we're talking about it right now. More attention is focused on this issue than ever before in the history of the conflict, and more people, for the first time, are seeing with their own two eyes through social media the extent to which Israel goes to respond when it feels like it's been, hit with some sort of injustice or attack on itself. And it is, listen, just by definition, you may say it's justified, but it is disproportionate in terms of the numbers of people being killed, injured, maimed, displaced, and some of property being destroyed. There's no mathematical calculation that could ever not meet that standard.
All right, man. I'm gonna get off. I got to move on. I got to actually do some plowing right now. I appreciate your time. I appreciate how gentle you were with me, because I've been on with 5 different people today, including people like me, and you're the only one that actually showed respect. So I give you that, and I appreciate your time.
Hey,
All right.
happy to be here. Yeah, I'll never tell you what not to say. I promise that. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you guys probably saw I probably struck a little nerve because I very rarely get a little bit off my center. But when somebody says, "Be careful with what you're about to say," I'm like, "Listen, man, that's not how I want to talk to anybody." Okay, I think Doc was dying to get in here. Doc, why don't you share your point of view? Sorry to make you wait so long.
It's okay. It just would have been useful to respond to his many points, which are basically all flawed. I think, frankly,
Do it now.
yeah, I mean, but he's not here. But anyway. So here's the problem with what he was saying. The more people like him speak, the more inhumane Israel appears to be. So the best thing people like him can do, to be honest, is say nothing at all. He's probably now going to do the rounds. He's probably going to now go to one chat to the other, and he's going to say the same things. and he's never going to change his mind. Here's a few things that are ludicrous about what he said. It's like saying, it's like a doctor saying, I'll give you cancer, then I'll treat you for the cancer, but I will also unalive you with that treatment. That's what he's saying about the H organization. He's basically saying that Israel wants to be rid of the H organization, but it seems that in attempting to do so, they are getting rid of the entire Palestinian population and the infrastructure. And the problem with people like him, who are relatively privileged, is they don't understand that all the points they're making are actually points against themselves, against their own arguments. For example, he said...
Hold on. I don't want to make the assumption that he's privileged. I mean, I don't know exactly what his background is. If you mean just by the fact that he lives in America, he's privileged, fair enough. But let's not assign things we're not totally sure about.
I mean, he's got an American passport and an Israeli passport, which most of us don't have. And he has the right to run from America to Israel and then back again without having to deal with any of the other usual procedures that others would have to deal with when going...
I'm trying to get a word in. Did he say he had an Israeli passport? I didn't hear that part of the conversation. If I missed that, I apologize. Yeah, I didn't hear him say that. That's what I'm trying
But
to
I've
say.
spoken to him before. Anyway, the point about privilege is exactly what he said. Let's forget him, okay? Forget him, okay? He's just an individual. Forget him. Let's talk about people who are Israeli who have the same opinions as him. He just said that Americans are born with $80,000 worth of debt. And it could be argued that a part of the reason for that is because America gives a huge amount of money to Israel, who then get free healthcare, which Americans don't get. They have to have insurance, free education at university. Again, Americans don't get that, etc. But here's the most important point. He said that the H organization's leadership are billionaires, and that if that money had been spent on the Gaza Strip, it would have been better. Again, the same argument can be made about Israel, because if the money that they spent on the military was spent on education, infrastructure, peace-building exercises, humanitarian organizations, etc., then we might have a very different situation. The other thing that he was saying is he was talking about figures and numbers and what's proportionate, etc. The minute people like him do that, because they have no idea what it feels like to be in war and to be destroyed, to have your whole life destroyed, they look and sound like the most inhumane psychopaths in the world, because they're talking about human beings and they're saying, well, you know, they got rid of 1,200 on our side, so we have to get rid of that many, or what number is enough, etc. These are individual human beings. Now, from the point of view of those children, those mothers, those innocent civilians, they're not going to sit there and say, you know what, fair enough, I'm going to be unalive because they haven't reached that number yet. So people like him live in a parallel universe. That's his privilege, because he's never faced hardship. That's why he can speak the way he does, because everything he said can be applied to Israel, whether it's the budget on defense, whether it's the billionaire leaders, because I'm sure Benjamin Netanyahu and others are either billionaires or at least have several hundred million. They could use that money on their population as well, and so on. So the problem with this is that the more they speak, the more they make it clear that when it comes to Israel, the rules don't apply. The rules don't apply. Just compare Russia in Ukraine, for example. Everything that is said about Russia, they say the complete opposite about Israel. So that's the problem. And whether they want to, so he was talking about, you know, towns and numbers and people. These rules that people like him have created for themselves don't apply in the real world, because one simple question would get rid of it. One simple step. For example, he is saying that proportionality is important to him, but he's only able to say that because Israel's military is very powerful. So if Israel's military had no power at all, or had very limited power, all this talk of what is proportional, how much damage they should do, how many hospitals they should destroy, would go out the window. It's only because they can do what they do, and because they get the money for it and the weapons, that people like him can talk about numbers in that way and proportionality in that way. And if they really care about the hostages, by the way, Those hostages are there too. They're in the same strip of land that has been bombed to pieces. And so they are likely being unalive too. So everything people like him say is a point against themselves. And yet it's shocking that they don't understand that and see that. And it's mind-boggling. And that is more terrifying than the consequences of not having gone into the Gaza Strip. Because Israel had a choice to make. A crime was committed, but that doesn't mean that they then have to go and commit crimes. It doesn't mean they have to send their military to the Gaza Strip. They could do different things. They could do other things. They could try different. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but I want.
Hold on. Let's let Dr.
Yeah,
finish,
no,
then
I'm
we'll let
done.
you-
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Thanks, Doc. Thanks for being here. We got a busy day with lots of guests. So real quickly, I just want to tell the audience, this is my updated schedule, because normally I used to do this 6 days a week. I'm now doing it 2 days a week. I had to make some tough decisions as far as like how to spend my time versus earning and living. But I'm doing Wednesday nights from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. and then Saturdays from 12 noon to 2 p.m. We might go a little longer today because I started a little late. Also, for those of you who don't know, I have a link tree in my bio. It allows you to get to my social media. I have Instagram, Rumble, YouTube, and then I have some donation links if you want to help out. I have a $5 a month Patreon, which is important to help independent people like me. But if you can, please do. If you can't, don't worry about it. And the other thing is these are all recorded. So if you want to watch this, if you want to catch the conversations we've had so far, which have been very interesting, please check it out. Usually about an hour or two after each episode, I have them uploaded to my YouTube and my Rumble. If you're outside the United States, the clickable link in my bio that normally will take you to the shortcuts I just mentioned is not there. I don't know why TikTok restricts it. But the point is, the text to get you to the same place is written into my bio. It says linktree/Chip Barnes. All you have to do is type that into any web browser, hit enter. It'll take you to the same place. So with that little update, let's see. I think they changed the batting order on me here. I don't know why they're doing this now. It used to be simple. I think it was Abdullah next. No, I'm sorry. It was Armasol next, then Abdullah, then Tui. And we'll go from there.
Good evening, sir, on Zoom from
Hi.
Cape Town. Good evening. So I just wanted to say that, Israel really, I do believe that number one, they had a motive for, I think, creating a national ethno-state for the Jewish people at all cost. And as soon as that opportunity arose, as with October 7th, because they had this information way in advance, as soon as this opportunity arose, they took full advantage to, I think, cause chaos at any cost. And everything that has happened since then, like people saying, "Oh, it's about the age group." It's not. It's nothing. It's got nothing to do with the age group. Oh, it's about the hostages. It's got nothing to do with the hostages, because if Israel really wanted to protect their people and the hostages, they would have been, reaching solutions way before now and more at more peaceful means. Anything that I think stands in the way of them creating an ethno-state for the Jewish people is just not what they're going to listen to. I mean, they don't even comply with the rules of war, because in fact this is war. Okay, the rules of war don't apply here because this isn't a war. This is an annihilation of a people at any cost, for many, many different reasons. But I think Israel takes it at any reason. We don't care what the reason is. We just want to be rid of them, the other, because they don't belong here. That type of thing. And I do feel that the credibility, for me, the biggest point is that the credibility of Israel and the way that it operates has been absolutely lost. We, as the general populace, I think would have had more sympathy with the people of Israel, or the way that it's just the way that they operate. Everything is a lie. Everything is wrapped in delusion. You find out so much information after the fact that you go like, hold on, after point 1, 2, and 5, you've lost all your credibility here, and the way that ignorant people still just feed into this, to this absolute rubbish. I feel it's like I just it's I don't have words for it anymore, and the fact that they're just allowed to continue, just it boggles the mind because they have no logic, they have no reason. I think their motives have become quite clear to the general population, and it's sort of like, are you insane? And for me, what is also striking is that any group of people, any government that sides with Israel, they've lost all political credibility in my eyes. I mean, it's like, I see you for what you are and I don't support you. Because I mean, this is just it's mind-boggling. That's all I can say. Thank you, sir. That's all I'd wish to say.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate your point of view. I want to emphasize this. Okay, I disagree with the Israeli point of view vis-a-vis this conflict, and of course the current quote unquote war, which I think is more of a slaughter. But I understand the point of view, and I don't negate anybody's point of view for thinking what they think, because I think, to be fair, you have to try to put yourself on either side of an issue and think, why would somebody say what they're saying? I think for those who want to see the state of Israel be safe and secure from harm from the outside in, it's not an unusual or irrational point of view to take that this has to be stopped once and for all. I understand that point of view. I think where it's flawed is not so much in its intent, but it's in its understanding of what's possible. And so what drives this conflict, everyone always says it's religion or it's historical Islam that wants to convert it. No, it's not what it is. What drives this is dispossession of land and oppression. Those two characteristics are the driving forces behind the anger that drives the behavior. And there's never resistance and attacks in any situation without something to be resisted. If this was an ideological hatred that Hamas members have who happen to be Islamic and they hate Jews and Judaism, and they're only doing it based on that abject hatred, that would make sense. The argument, I would agree with you, that has to be eradicated. There's no negotiating with that. It's got to be stopped. But if that's not the case, just go with this thought exercise for those of you who support Israel. If that is not the driving factor, and if the occupation and the blockade and the overall feeling of being under somebody else's thumb, someone else's control, someone else's subjugation, humiliation, no hope, your life is made miserable, it's made very difficult, someone else controls your life. Imagine if that was the driving motivation for wanting to change the dynamic. Now, you can argue what the tactics should be. Should it be political only? Should it be peaceful? I would say ideally, yes. Wholeheartedly agree with that. Unfortunately, when peaceful resolution is made impossible, violence becomes inevitable. Someone famous said that once. I don't know if it was Kennedy or somebody, but something like that. And that makes sense, right? I mean, if you're stuck in a bad situation indefinitely, and this is not to compare the two, but it's the thought process that drives the motivation. So there were Jews that were in the ghettos of Warsaw, Poland, who saw their plight as being, an impossible situation. So they resisted, because that's what human beings typically do, is they try to find a way to break away or break out from under an oppressive situation. Obviously, that one has a whole different set of circumstances, different story, but the sentiment, the feeling that drove that uprising is the same set of feelings that motivate the Palestinian people and the more militant among them to fight back. If Israel can eliminate every fighter, every militant in Hamas, remove the governing authority of Hamas from Gaza, establish some sort of administrative control and rule over it with some other type of thing, the resistance will not go away. It'll take some other form. And you may say, well, good riddance, as long as we get rid of Hamas, that's what we have to do. Yeah, but what's going to come next? It's like the Hydra, when you chop the head off of a snake, two heads come back out again. They know the old story. And this is no different. It's what the US does around the world when it decides to drone attack, to try to go after a militant in Afghanistan and kills off 60 people at a wedding. What do you think that fosters in those people? Happiness, rose petals? No, anger, hatred, and future terror. That's it. That's what it does. Just one sec. I'm not quite done yet. And I got to remember who's next. I can't see the person at the bottom because they're on coffee break, but I think that there was one person ahead of Tui, and then I wanted to give Tui a chance to say something. And remember, I like to hear all sides. It's fair to give people the floor. Please, in the comments, if you disagree with somebody, do it in a way that's issue-based and not personally attacking them, or that doesn't do any good. Eventually, we have to find a way to work this out. And so shouting past each other is never going to work that out, right? And unfortunately, what could happen to fix this is probably not going to happen. I think what should happen is all of the settlements that have been put in place in the occupied West Bank have to go. They were all done illegally, according to everyone else in the world, except for Israel, who seems to have this delusional idea that it, quote, captured the territory in 1967 when it was attacked, which never happened, that's ridiculous. And that they've chosen to settle it in increasing levels over the last 5-6 decades. And therefore, that has been the driving problem behind the inability to have a two-state solution, is the physical territorial lack of it's been fragmented by the Israeli population. But that's not going to happen. You're not going to get 700,000 people out of their homes. I'm not naive. So because of that fact, a one-state solution becomes the only physically practical solution. Israel doesn't want that because they don't want to share political power under a democracy. And they couldn't, and they won't. So neither are going to happen at this point. So then what's next? That's always the next question. Well, what can happen then? Well, what's next is what's happening. Israel is using the pretext of what happened on 10/7 to come in and strong arm and exert their will further under the guise of going after Hamas and their elimination, which may be part of its mission. I'm not in the heads of the people. But what it's actually doing is destroying the northern half of Gaza, bombing the southern half, and especially the lower third now. All the people have been pushed down for the most part in the lower portion of the country. And it seems like they're going to try to squeeze them out like a tube of toothpaste to take over the land. That's what it looks like from the outside in. And the reason why things have changed in this, and I know people from Israel and people who support Israel are probably not happy about this, but perception being reality, most people perceive this to be a massive series of Israeli war crimes that are disproportionate given the stated mission. That's what people are seeing. And for those who have any historical context and understanding how Israel does respond to different attacks over the years, this is nothing new, nothing unusual. It's just a little more egregious and a lot more disproportionate than in previous instances, but not at all unexpected. Okay, let me bring in Tui, who's been waiting patiently, and then we'll bring in, I think, Abdullah next. We'll do that way.
Hello, bro.
Hi.
Marhaba. I am from, my name is Abdullah from Palestine. I live from Palestine now. I don't speak English.
Hold on, Abdul, hold on one sec. I said I was going to give Tui a chance to talk, and then Abdul. Okay, just one sec. Hello, Tui. Can barely hear you.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Had my thumb over the hole on the iPhone.
No problem.
We disagree. I'm a Hebrew Christian, and I can give you the point of view from that perspective. I'm not a Jew, and therefore I don't call myself a Messianic Jew. I'm a believer in the Messiahship of Jesus that was trained by Messianic Jews. Are you familiar with biblical history at all?
I would say in terms of not as a scholar, I'm loosely familiar with the things that I hear discussed all the time on here and what I've read.
Yeah, I could just make a
But
quick point and not dwell on it. But so the story of ancient Israel has always been one of a disbelieving populace with a small amount of believers within the country. If you ever take the time, or most people, if they've read the stories of judges and kings and the prophets, it's been a perpetual state of being for them. It was always a small minority that actually believed in their God. And the reason why that's significant from a Hebrew Christian point of view, because I do believe this is a religious war, it's significant because,
why do you believe it's religious? Can you just clarify that?
well, because I believe the Bible, number one. So I believe that the Jews and Zionists are biblical product of biblical prophecy. That's why. And I also believe that there's an ideology from
You're for
Islam.
stoning. You're for stoning, and you're for slavery, those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, not anymore. Back when it was happening, yeah, I'm not against what they were doing.
Okay.
But
And do you believe there's a hell? And people who don't believe in Jesus go to hell?
I do. And I believe that the majority of people in Israel, as well as I believe probably all Muslims, will go to hell. I believe that.
Okay. Now, in terms of other people who think differently than that, so is it possible My stated thing on this position is I'm confused. Not towards you per se, just in general. I don't have clarity or confirmation in any sort of belief that I try to get my head around, and I've tried very hard over many years. I say I'm confused because I don't deny or confirm. So that's a fair way to be, right? I don't know for sure. Is it possible that your interpretation of what you're sharing with us today is incorrect?
It's possible I could be wrong. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. A lot of people say no way. So the point is, in terms of interpretation of historical or biblical or religious texts, whether it be Islam or Christianity or Judaism, let's move forward to the modern era, absent that which may be incorrect in terms of religious interpretation from a deity standpoint. From 1850 on, how do you see it within what's happened on the ground?
Okay, I can answer that, but if I am wrong, the only way that I can be wrong is if the scriptures in the Bible could not be taken literally. So there's a possibility that I'm wrong, and I'm only representing a literal interpretation, which is something that Judaism rejects. It's also rejected by Islam, and it's also rejected by Protestantism, Catholicism, and the Orthodox Church. It's unique to a Hebrew Christian perspective, which believes that a first century Jewish believer's interpretation, a literal one of the prophets and the Torah and the rest of it, is imperative to understand the modern state of Israel as it exists today. So my point of view is that the Palestinian people are simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that the modern state of Israel was the fulfillment of Ezekiel's prophecy when he says that they would be gathered from all the nations that God scattered them into, which happened in AD 70, and it
Well,
lasted
again,
for...
1850 on, absent historical context.
Oh, what are you trying to ask?
In other words, in terms of what's actually happened on the ground, how do you feel about the modern history versus the ancient history of justifying what you think fits into that paradigm, if it could be incorrect for what you said earlier?
Well, no, I don't think I am incorrect. What I think is that
No, I didn't say you were incorrect. I said it could be incorrect.
well,
You said that, right?
I believe that you're incorrect. I believe Islam is incorrect. I believe that Judaism is incorrect. That's what I believe. And that
That's
let
fair.
me
What I'm
just give
saying
you
is, in terms of
let me just say
in terms
this.
of what happened, hold on, in terms of what happened since 1850,
Yeah, so
though, without that.
what authenticates my belief system is the modern state of Israel. The fact that they survived 19 centuries of cruising around the earth and anti-Semitism, the pogroms, the Holocaust, the Spanish Inquisition. They survived all these centuries only to be brought back in 1948 as a direct fulfillment of their Hebrew prophets, who, by the way, they have rejected to study literally. So Judaism is not looking at the fulfillment of 1948 and connecting it with Ezekiel 20 and 22. So this is what authenticates my belief system, which is why I believe I'm not wrong. Could I be wrong? Yeah, I'd be a fool not to say so, but I believe 100% in my heart and mind, it's already settled that I have the truth. In other words, you would be like in the story of Noah, when there was a flood coming and rejecting that message. And the Muslims, particularly the Palestinians, who are caught in the middle of this mess right now, are in the same position as the people in the day of Noah. They're rejecting the Bible. They're rejecting the fact that Zionism is something that was given to the Jewish people and placed in their hearts to want to live in the land. However, prophetically, they've been brought back as an unbelieving nation. They've been brought back in a state of rebellion against their God, and it's for the purpose, literally, for them to pass through a time of judgment that will cause them to return to their God in faith. So this is this is the message of the Bible.
I'm giving you a lot of airtime to say what you want to say, which I think is fair. I listen to you. I'm going to ask a couple questions, I guess rhetorically, and then I'm going to share some points, and we can see where we are with that. So, first of all, there's a guy named Theodor Herzl, who's the founder or the conceptualizer of the idea of Zionism, which is looking to establish a Jewish homeland. I'm sure you're aware of that. Herzl was an atheist. He doesn't believe a single word what you just said. most of the people who are supporting the Zionist movement are not believers in any word you just said. What they do believe in is having land for safety for Jewish people. I'm not against that. I think that's actually a great aspiration to have. Any group of people who have been historically marginalized should have a safe place to be. I think that is perfectly sensible. However, the way in which it was gone about and sort of schemed into existence, using the biblical references that you're referring to as justification, as the land being, quote unquote, the land of the Jews, was very convenient to sort of permit what happened in 1948 to occur. And therefore, a lot of people who were, you say that people were living in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now, let me ask you a fair question. You sound like you're an American. You sound like from the United States. So let's say I believe something, and I have a text that references something that I believe that was written by some human being a while back, that believes that, let's say you're from Tierney, New Jersey, that Tierney, New Jersey is historically my people's land. And I come to your house this afternoon with 15 people that are armed and say, hey, Tui, you got to go. You got to go, man. I'm telling you, listen, I know this sucks. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time, but you got to go. My God and my history tells me, plus my political settler movement behind me tells me that this is going to be mine from now on. Sucks to be you, but you got to go. How do you feel about that, Tui?
It because you'd have to authenticate why you believe that that's true, and I've done that.
I just said the book. I have a book. I have a book that proves it.
Right. But I have proof, and the fact that Theodore Herzl was an atheist, and I've heard that as much as 70% of the Israeli population they're kind of neutral, that they're not really religious. They might even be atheist. That authenticated my position that I just shared with you in the Ezekiel 20 and 22 chapter.
But what about my book?
Hold on, they'd be brought back in unbelief.
What about my book? So you have your book that you.
Your book has no authentication.
Okay, hold on. So the question comes down to, why is it that the book that you believe in versus the book that I believe in, why does yours have justification and mine doesn't?
Because
why
mine
can't mine have justification and yours doesn't?
Mine self-authenticates itself.
Okay. Well, listen, there's no arguing with that. If you think that, I could make the same argument. Hey, Tui, you're mistaken. You don't interpret things correctly because my book self-authenticates the things that I'm saying.
You just made it up out of your imagination. The Bible's been around for centuries, and the fact that the Jews have survived.
My book's been around for 16 centuries, Tui.
That the Jews have survived authenticated.
Hold on. Let's do this. Tui, thanks for being here. I appreciate you. You shared your point of view in a very in-depth way. I appreciate you doing it. I think we're not going to get anywhere with that because you keep cycling back to the fact that the Bible gives historical license for this to occur. It's a fulfillment of prophecy in Ezekiel, I think you kept saying. So the point I'm trying to make is that anybody can claim from their historical book they believe in that whatever they're doing is justified because they believe it. But professing belief in something that was written by somebody else in the past is not a valid evidentiary justification. You may believe it is, but it isn't in reality. It's a subjective interpretation of something that you feel gives license to do A, B, and C. That's the difference. So the point I'm trying to make is that you said earlier, and I think this was very fair. I want to commend you for saying this. I asked you, is it possible that you're wrong, that what you believe is incorrect? You said, yes, it's possible. That's all I'm asking for. I like to call myself confused because I think it would be very arrogant of me to say, I know for sure that this text in the past is, I don't know. I don't know. I have to say this, you could be 100% right, and I could be 100% wrong. I just don't know. I just know that the logic and the evidence based on what we're using to give certainty is not as clear as you seem to make it to be. And I think that's where things slide down the hill. So I guess that's why I try to talk about the history from the modern era on. And I look at the motives and the ideologies of the different players involved, how it came to be, what happened to whom in what way. To say that a certain people are, quote, unfortunately located in the way of some others who have this destiny, I think if you put yourself in their shoes, you might see it a little differently. It's easy to say that from the comfort of our homes, wherever you may be. I'm assuming you're in the United States, you may not be. But like I said to you earlier, if myself or others who believe in something totally differently than you happen to believe came up to you and said, hey, Tui, you got to go. You got to go. I have proof because of what I believe, that it self-authenticates itself, that this is my land, you got to go. You and your family and your community got to go. Here's a gun. You don't want to go, you're going to get shot. Take your pick. Right? You'd probably say, bullshit. I'm not going anywhere. Well, people said that too. Guess what happened? They got murdered. The rest fled because they saw people like Tui who wouldn't leave get murdered. Then the question has to be, well, how's this fair? How can my book justify what happened to Tui's family? That's not fair. That's the point of all this, Tui, is that you shouldn't have to go off the place you're living just because someone else claims it's self-authenticated from history and some sort of interpretation of religious text. If you think that's an unfair comparison because you believe that your particular version of history is the one, I think you're being disingenuous because it's a belief system, not an absolutely biophysical certainty. So I'm not attacking his beliefs, John. I'm not attacking anybody. I'm pointing out an inconsistency in the logic of saying that my beliefs are the beliefs, and therefore everything is understood within those beliefs, and therefore it has to be so it's justified. And other people who are inconvenienced or unalived or killed doesn't matter because those are the beliefs that are the right beliefs. That's my point, John. If you want to come up and talk, please do. You can share your disagreement. That's fine. And listen, this may offend some people who believe in the Bible and who are Christian, and I don't want to offend you. I don't know for sure what the Bible is real, isn't real, was written by men, was inspired by God. I don't, if there is a God, I don't have certainty on any of this stuff. Some things you can't require evidence for, which is faith. I understand that. That's why it's a leap of faith. And that's a leap that I haven't been able to make. I've tried to make it a lot of times, whether it be for Islam, Christianity, Judaism, anything else, you name it, even the flying spaghetti monster, which is a religion, by the way. Look it up in the dictionary, you'll see it. I can't connect with any of those things, even though I've tried. I really want to, because as I say often, if you follow me, the people that do have faith seem to have this sort of steadiness, this calm and peace within them that I'm envious of. But at the same time, I can't lie and embrace something just to say that I do when I don't. I think that's worse than not doing it at all. So anyway, okay, I think I got to remember who's. I think it was next, and then I think it was. It's hard. They used to put them in order. Now they're switching the order up. It's making it harder for you to remember.
Hello, brother. How are you?
Hi.
It's my name Abdullah from Palestine, West Bank. I have Bari speak Arabic. في حدا بيحكي عربي يا اخوان هنا بس يطلع يترجم.
Hold on a second, Abdul. I'm not sure what you were saying. I don't know if you're saying that you want to speak in Arabic, if you need to speak in Arabic. If you can bring on another guest who can translate, who speaks English and Arabic, if you want to have a conversation we can listen to that way, we can do that. For now, I'm going to let someone else speak until you clarify that. I think the next person was the Arabian in Israel. By the way, someone in the comments had a title, a name called the
Valley girl
second.
sitting up there said that she can translate.
Who said what?
Pally girl, a pale girl up there said that she
Pali
could
girl.
translate.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you. Yeah, let's do this. So if Pali, just a second, but let me just finish the last thing with the name. I'll bring
Down
on.
for her if you want me to.
Hold on a sec. Just one sec. We'll figure that out in a second. But I want to say there was a name of somebody in the comments who said the name of the person was the second Nakba is coming. Now, if somebody called themselves the second Holocaust is coming in the comments in a pro-Israel live, I would imagine there'd be people that were highly offended by that. Okay, so if you're somebody who tries to be balanced and decent, please don't come in with a name like that and start throwing shit out. That's I don't know. You do what you got to do, but I think you wouldn't want to have that done back to you.
I will drop down for that girl.
You say drop down for that girl. What do you mean?
For the translator. I will drop down for that translator.
You don't have to drop. You don't have to drop down. Just hang on for a sec. Let me see, Pally girl, or let me take you off mute so we can. Are you able to do English to Arabic to English translation?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me bring back Abdullah if he wants to speak in Arabic, Abdullah, and then let Pally girl translate. Let's see what Abdullah wants to say in Arabic.
كيف حالك اخوي؟ بس بدنا نحكي عن الاوضاع اللي بتصير حاليا بغزة. تمام. انا ناشط، يعني بساعد الاخوان، بفتح لايف خاص عندي وبساعد الاخوان الموجودين بغزة. فصار معي اشي اليوم عن طريق بثي، وحابب انه اوصله للعالم.
So he's saying that he's doing this to, you know, with his to help his friends out, and that something happened to him today on a route to كنت بتروح فين؟
كنت انا بس يعني الصورة اللي حاططها هي من الاحداث اللي صارت في القصف الاخير اللي صار في رفح.
He's gonna tell you what happened today. النهارده برفح.
صحيح صحيح.
What happened today in Rafah.
Okay.
أنا بكلم عربي، أنا فلسطيني بس بكلم عربي مصري عشان يعني حكاية طويلة، بس بكلم معايا بشويش بس.
مش مشكلة مش مشكلة. اليوم كان معي أخ من رفح اسمه إبراهيم واللهم صل على سيد محمد. كان يعني كنا نساعد فيه، إنه بتعرف الأوضاع صعبة.
So he was with his brother in Rafah. يا صاحبك ولا أخوك؟
صحيح صحيح صاحبي.
A friend in Rafah. وبعدين إيه اللي حصل؟
كان فاتح لي كاميرا بوري فيه بالأوضاع اللي موجودة عند المعبر ما بين مصر وما بين يعني الحدود بين مصر ورفح.
هو عمل زي فيلم عليك على الحكاية بين مصر وبين رفح؟ يعني
شو
فتح الكاميرا، يعني ايه فتح الكاميرا؟
صحيح هو بوري الناس يعني شو بصير عندهم برفح.
Oh, so he's showing people, he's actually filming out there in Rafah and showing people what's actually really happening there. And this is it
صحيح.
right here. This is like he's a picture.
هاي الصورة احكي لهم، هاي على القصف الأخير اللي صار على النازحين وعلى الخيم الموجودة برفح.
This is what's left of Rafah right now. This is an actual footage of what they've bombed, like tents, and like there's nothing really left. يعني فيها عملوا بومبا على التنتس دول.
على النازحين على الناس اللي يعني على النازحين الموجودين ما إلهم أي ذنب.
Just normal people, you know, trying to seek refuge right there on the border in Rafah under tents. They just discriminately bomb them, just not targeted, just bombing.
Yeah, I saw that. I just saw the news about that flash across. It was from Palestine. I have Eye on Palestine, which is a Telegram channel I follow. They just said that Israeli forces target tent cities in Rafah with mass artillery bombardment.
Yeah. And that's what they're not showing you. So he's, you know, his friend is actually filming all of this stuff right here. This is a footage of today, actually, in Rafah, right on the border there. So that's
So the question people have to ask themselves is, if you're pro-Israel, do you believe that firing artillery rounds into tent cities where you've told civilians to disperse to avoid conflict is going after Hamas militants, or is that abject murder of civilians as a war crime?
يعني هو بيسأل الناس، يعني بتفهم هو بيقول ايه ولا ممكن اترجم؟
اوكي افهمي شو بحكي بقى، انا بساعدك.
لا هو بيقول ان يعني هو it's okay يعني للناس ان يقولوا للفلسطيني، الناس الفلسطينيين يروحوا حتى يكون ما يعملوش البومبا، ويروحوا ويعملوا بومبا على الناس عادي كده.
صحيح طلبوا منهم النزوح من بيوتهم على اساس يروحوا على رفح، مناطق آمنة، ولكن تم يعني القصف عليهم بشكل همجي.
Yeah, they tell them get out of your buildings, out of your homes, and then they displace them so many times until they get to the end of Rafah, and then they start bombing them there. They just bomb them everywhere. There's nowhere safe for them to go.
Yeah, it's horrific. And the thing I try to explain to people who are pro-Israel is that the rhetoric of Hamas using people as human shields is garbage. It doesn't happen. And the fact that Israel is bombing residential buildings, they're coming down in piles of rubble, children, women, innocent men are being killed on the regular. Then they tell the few that survive to move, If they're in a hospital and they're injured and they can't move, they come in and they shoot people up. They take the bodies back to skin banks and stuff like that. It's absolutely horrific. And then for those that do leave, they get to places where they're further displaced, and then they bomb them there. There's no place to go now. And they're all, if you go to the north, there's no food, there's no water, there's no nothing. There's not even, it's all rubble. And if you stay in the south, you're subjected to what we're seeing today. What are
I
they
want to
supposed to
ask
do?
him if he thinks what the next move is. They're doing this to push them so that they want to leave for Rafah because, I mean, for Egypt. Palestinians don't want to leave their land. These people are the ones that stayed. My ancestors left, got shot at in 48, never went back. These are the brave Palestinians that refused to leave and have been subjected to brutal occupation all these years and still never left their land. So they know they're not going to leave their land. And so they have to intimidate them to the highest degree to make sure that they're so scared, they're starved, they have no water, they are so scared they're about to die because now Rafah is getting bombed that they have no choice but to beg to leave. And that's what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing.
Okay, does Abdul have anything else he wants to say? Is he still here? I can't see him.
عبدو عاوز تقول حاجة تانية؟
بس بدنا نحكي شغلة واحدة إنه الوضع حاليا مع النازحين الموجودين في رفح يعني صعب جدا. لا يعني بس بدي تحكي لهم إنه المساعدات اللي قاعدة بتيجي عن طريق مصر بتم بيعها بيع للتجار.
So there used to be humanitarian aid that used to come through. The situation's dire right now because they have blockaded, any humanitarian aid that used to come through Egypt, through Rafah, is no longer. And so he wants everyone to know, how dire the situation is for them right now. التراكس اللي بيجوا من الكاميونات بيجوا من رفح بطلوا يجوا من كام يوم يعني كام اسبوع.
صحيح اللي صار اليوم إنه دخلت سيارة مساعدات فكان موجودين الناس. يعني انت بتعرف الناس هسه حاليا بغزة محتاجين اشي ياكلوه.
So واحد دخل واحد بس النهارده.
شاحنة واحدة صحيح.
Just one went in today.
صحيح. فتم حتى الإطلاق عليهم، تم إطلاق النار على الأشخاص اللي يعني طخوا على الناس اللي موجودين هناك.
Then that's where they started shooting at the people when that truck came in with the humanitarian aid. They started shooting at the people there in that area.
Wow.
Today.
Yeah, one thing I'd love to hear is as someone who supports this, how can this type of thing be justified? I know the argument has been because people who voted for Hamas in 2006 and who supported the resistance actions or support the idea of resistance, including the horrific nature of the attacks, therefore nobody's innocent, quote unquote. But the counterpoint that I get raised is that half the people living in Gaza weren't alive when the vote took place to support Hamas, and that most people who live in the occupied territories or in Gaza don't support hurting civilians. They support the concept of changing the circumstances under which they've been living most horrifically for decades. And what else are they to do? Sit back and take it, or try to do anything to change their plight?
Chip, can I have a moment to say what I was waiting to say? I think I was next, maybe. I just wanted to say something just real quick, maybe just 2 minutes. Okay, so my family, they're from Haifa, Palestine. We're Catholic, Roman Catholic, actually, to be exact. So in the Nakba, my grandpa, he was on the top of the building. They were coming into everyone's houses and they were pulling them out and shooting them and killing people to get them out of their houses, and everybody was running. They were all running to get out. They were scared. They didn't know what was about to happen to them once they left, that this war would end up, where they would never, ever return. But so my grandfather was on top of the building, of the apartment building, and he was trying to fend them off, with a rifle, and he couldn't anymore, So my dad was a year old. She grabbed him and they started running for the train. My grandpa caught a bullet in the seam of his pants while he was running for the train to Egypt. And then they took the train to Egypt, and they were the lucky ones. They got out. And when they got to Egypt, my dad lived until he was maybe like about 20 years old as a refugee. He didn't have a country. He didn't have a passport. He couldn't leave the country. He had no rights. He had no country. So he grew up in Egypt as a refugee. And then, you know, they opened up immigration in Canada in like the 70s, well, 60s, late 60s. So he went up there, went to university up there, and, you know, he became a Canadian. And that's his only citizenship till today, you know. So let me explain. This is just a little background of who my family is on both sides, right? All Christian, Catholic, and Palestinian. So when people start to talk about the Bible and they confuse, you know, Zionism. They try to take Judaism and Christianity and mix it up together somehow. It's this new evangelistic, new Western way of thinking of Christianity. There's so many different ones, you know, and they all believe these different things. And mainly in the United States, they believe that the Israel, that is Israel, meaning that is the Zionists' Israel, you know, not the Jews that actually live there side by side with the Palestinians before 48. It was 1933 when they left from the Holocaust and they went to Palestine. But before they went to Palestine, they actually had training camps in Poland and all these countries that they were all from, to train how to invade the Palestinians and take over Palestine and make it an Israeli state. So this has been going on since 1938, maybe, you know? So this is not a new thing. And then the problem is that people have not read the Zionist plan. They haven't read it, because if you actually read it, you would know what's about to happen next, you know? It's word for word exactly what the plan was from the beginning, was to not only, if you really read this, it goes into detail about dehumanizing Palestinians in the media to make them look like a threat to the world. I mean, it goes into so much detail. And so when this guy says, first of all, that these guys are, they don't believe in God, half of them in Israel, that's true. They don't believe in God. They're Zionists. So Zionists don't believe in God. They're atheists. Then we have these evangelistic Christians that have these new testaments of Christianity, these branched out, you know, to whatever they want to believe. You know, they've even changed like Christmas songs, you know, like Bethlehem, they changed it to Israel. And we don't notice this, but it's this brainwashing that like the media controls it all. And the media is owned by these organizations. They're Zionist organizations. And all anybody has to do is read. Just look it up. And you'll find this information right there in front of your face. The problem is, it's all been hidden from us because we've had all these other things that the media's like put in our face. And, you know, we've been so brainwashed, even me included, living in the United States. The only time I ever see anything is when I go to Egypt to visit my dad. And then he's showing me videos. I watched Rachel get run over by a bulldozer when I was like 20 years old. And I went to Egypt.
Rachel Corrie, right?
Yeah. So this is not something that happened on October 7th. And I just want to leave you with this, okay? Hamas actually was one of the groups that they were actually the ones that helped annihilate and remove ISIS. You know, the thing is that people don't understand who Hamas really is. If you look at the Palestinian history, you'll understand this, that resistance was the only thing that got them anywhere. They don't have a political movement. Their voice is not heard in the UN. They tried, you know, Yasser Arafat, he was covered with tanks pointing at his compound. Years before he died, my cousin actually went down, they live in Canada, went down for a vacation there, and he, I don't know, met some nationalists from like Switzerland, and they ended up going into his compound, and they were the ones that occupied with Yasser Arafat, the compound, so that they didn't bomb Yasser Arafat. They wanted to get rid of him. So they had all these like Americans and people from Switzerland and Canada all in there, because if they did that, then they would have to take them out too. He actually interviewed Yasser Arafat. He won't share it with the media because he knew the media would like distort it, as they always do. They make that guy out to be some like crazy T person. And this has been going on for a long time. Even back in the days in the 70s when there was hijackings happening, there was a different kind of hijacking when it came to the Palestinians. You know what they did? They never killed one person on the plane. They actually apologized to everybody on the plane. We're sorry for the inconvenience. You know, you guys really need to watch these documentaries. We're sorry for this inconvenience, and then educate them on the history of their resistance and why they're doing this. Land the plane and say goodbye and shake everybody's hand. They're like shaking their hands like, thank you, bye. You know, this is not, you see, there is a big difference. This is a resistance group that was also in charge, you know, and they were their government as well. But they ask them, why do you do this? Why would you unalive people? You know what they said? Because I'm walking today and I'm not breathing. When your back is to the wall, when you have no choice, when you're watching an IOF soldier point his gun at a 2-year-old and literally shoot him, like, what would you do? You know, we get so pissed off about like an active shooter. We've got this one and we've got that one, and, you know, it really pisses us off, you know? And that's just so weird that a few children would piss you off, but thousands wouldn't. And when you don't watch these videos, that's why you don't know, world. You don't know what's really happening. It's hard to believe that someone would do something like that, right?
Yeah, so I just want to make sure I'm really enjoying what you're sharing, but a lot of people, we've been going on for about 10 or 12 minutes, so we have to give somebody a chance to trip. Please stay though, if you're okay with it. I want to hear more of what you have to say, but thank you for sharing your family history and some of your perspective. I think the Arabian of Israel has been waiting patiently, so welcome.
Yeah, Chip, would you clear up what was your MO?
Let me clarify for the audience who this person is. So this is somebody who has created a fake account about me, who has made all sorts of pejorative statements, has called me a scumbag, a loser, all sorts of other things. I'm not going to give this guy the time of day on my platform. In my opinion, he's a bad faith actor. He's trying to go back to my childhood to try to understand why I think what I think. Go somewhere else and take your hate and vitriol elsewhere. Okay, let's see. We have Hanan.
Yes, thank you, Chip. I just wanted to say, I wanted to echo Valley Girls, whatever she said, and what you said before. When
Yeah.
violence is non-violence is great, diplomacy is great, sitting on the table, having talks is wonderful, ideally. But when your back is to the wall and not just, it's not a boxing game of say where you have 3-minute rounds, it is 75, 76 years. And when someone has the authority to talk, international community, say South Africa, African National Congress, Nelson Mandela, the Cuban government, the Venezuelan government, several, even India, USSR, the erstwhile Soviet Union, when PLO was talking on behalf of the Palestinians, did they give them a fair chance? No, I don't think so. When Ismail Haniyeh became the Prime Minister of the Palestinian National Authority in 2006, I believe, was he accepted as a democratically elected prime minister, and was he given a chance to talk? No. So when obviously October the 7th was unfortunate. I condemn it wholeheartedly. But a loss of life of an Israeli, loss of life of a Jew, of a Zionist, is in my opinion, it's equal to the loss of life of all the Palestinians for 76, 75, 76 years. The world has to wake up and see, and I am glad you and a lot of people here on this panel and a lot of other people who are protesting against this genocide. I actually, like Pally Girl said, I see this as a very pre-planned, or rather, my Uso is a brother in Samoan language. So my Uso Tui said that it's prophesied or whatever, you know. So it is like, sounds like a prophecy. They want to create an ethnic, pure, like exactly what Adolf did in Germany, a superior race or whatever. So a a Zionist only country. And that's what they are doing, and they are cornering people. Biscuits, water, nappies, sugar, all these, all these things of daily use that everyone needs, they were stopped from coming into Gaza. What would they do? Obviously, they would resist. And every resistance to the imperialist is what you call terrorism. Yeah, like Nelson Mandela said, that when non-violence doesn't work, is not getting us freedom, our dignity, we will use violence. And yeah, Yasser Arafat was there in a meeting. I forget where it was, but well, I don't condone violence. But what else could they do? Like we saw these tents being bombed. Who would not pick up arms against that? People would, like you said. If you kill each fighter of the Palestinian resistance, which is Hamas, if you kill every Hamas fighter, there will be someone else would come up with maybe with the name Hamas or something else, mayonnaise, for all I care. There will be a different name, but resistance against oppression will always be there. And
Yeah, I
just one
agree.
more point. Please support citizens journalism. Please, please, please. But the mainstream media is full of. There was a slogan I was listening to the protesters in Ireland. They were saying, every time the media lies, a child in Gaza dies. So please support citizens journalism that comes from the ground, please. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate the point. Yeah, there's so many good content creators. I don't know if you ever heard of Richard Medhurst. If you haven't followed Richard Medhurst, listen, it doesn't do any good for me to try to push people's eyeballs away from me. But at the same time, we should all be helping each other. He mentioned citizens journalism. There's some really great people. He's one of them. If you haven't followed Richard Medhurst, his work, go to YouTube right now, after you're done watching me, hopefully, and follow Richard Medhurst. He's amazing. And again, there are certain people you look up to that have been online for a while that you watch, and he's one of my heroes. And Richard's probably 20 years younger than me. He's just an amazing guy. Anyway, I do want to mention another person. Speaking of other, this is a good segue. Speaking of other content creators, for those who don't know who Midwestern Marks is, maybe some people do. I'm going to quickly show him really quickly on this because I have the computer. He's going to be coming on as a live guest Wednesday night. His name is Eddie Liger. I'm sure you've seen the guy, but you probably don't. You'll recognize him once you see his name come up. Midwestern Marks. There we go. Let me see if I can get him to come up here. Here we go. Here's Eddie. You'll recognize the guy if I just turn the camera really quickly. I'm sure you've seen him before. No, that's not Eddie. Hold on. He's doing somebody did a Stitch video. Here's Eddie right here. Pause it right there. So there's Eddie right there. His name is Eddie Liger. Midwestern Marks is his name. Has all sorts of great videos. So he's going to be coming on Wednesday. I'll be doing a video to promote it. But He's I think he's a great guy. He's focuses on sort of worker-based solutions, not, capitalist stuff. I mean, the word Marx, but just a lot of great videos about Israel Palestine. So Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. That's when I do my lives on weeknights. And I was doing 6 days a week. Someone mentioned about supporting independent people, and this is not a guilt trip to anybody. It's just to let you know the truth. Most people can't do this as often as they would like to. People who are speaking out like me and others, because they have to find a way to pay their bills. And I know it sucks when everyone pays for cable TV, and then you have, or some people do, and then you have MSNBC and Fox. Those people are getting, $500,000, $600,000 a year salaries, right? And us buying TV is paying for that. That's how they pay for the salaries of these people, for the advertising money that comes in. Independent people don't have any of that, right? We don't have any backers. I've been told I have backers from Qatar. Come on, give me a break. So it sucks to have to chip in $5 a month to people you like. I get it, but that's the only way people like me and others survive. I do have a link tree in my bio, which has a link to my donations link. And this is not at all to put pressure on anybody, because we all got to do what we got to do. But if you're somebody who can afford to support somebody, whether it's me or somebody else like Eddie or Richard Medhurst or whomever you like, please do. I support 4 or 5 different people that I like a lot. So that's the new landscape we're in. The corporatocracy is never going to support having somebody like me. I'll never be allowed. People say, you should go on Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan won't have me on. There's no way Piers Morgan would let me on his show. Never going to happen. I'd never go on MSNBC or Fox or CNN or any of the major, podcasts. It's just not going to happen, because people like me are not allowed. If you speak your mind as an independent, critical thinker that's critical of Israel, that's the last person they want on there. They don't want you on there. You got to be somebody who will play ball. The Ben Shapiros of the world, the big money people. It's really sad. But it is what it is. That's the corporate landscape. Somebody says, of course not, you support H group. Let me say this once and for all. I do not support the Hamas political movement or the Hamas militancy. I don't. I understand what the Hamas militant resistance did on 10/7 within the broader context. I don't support hurting civilians. I don't support taking civilian hostages. I don't support killing civilians. I don't support harming women, children, the elderly. Any of those things on both sides. Okay. I believe in peace. I believe in getting along with each other, talking and learning from each other. Nothing to do with fighting or militancy. I served in a war. Unlike most people, I was on the front lines of a combat situation. I've seen it up close. War is horrible. When you have those experiences, the last thing you want to do is see more of it. But to claim that I support Hamas is absurd. Absurd. Now, as others have argued, and I don't see this as an irrational argument, if not for Hamas, who is going to defend the interests of the Palestinian people? I'm not necessarily pick any other group, but someone has to stand up for the principles they're trying to achieve. And it's not to unalive, to murder Israeli Jews. That's not their goal. The point is, the goal of their operation is to try to find a way towards liberation, to have a state of their own, to have peace and have dignity and self-determination. So that's what they want. And anything they do is a means to those ends. If they didn't have to organize and arm and fight, they'd much rather have a peaceful situation where they can go about their lives and enjoy their families and, just have a life. Have a life. They can't. They're put in a no-win situation. And then when they fight back, they're condemned. Oh, how dare you use violence, like the previous person was saying. I understand it. I understand it from the other perspective. But if you're going to keep your boot on somebody's neck indefinitely and then get outraged when they reach up and fight back a little bit, you got to go grab a mirror and really take a look at what's really going on. Because you have to understand what role you play in the resistance occurring. You can't claim, innocence when you're doing something proactively to make someone else miserable and to make their lives impossible, and then be aghast when they dare to fight back. I think it's very normal for any human being living under those circumstances to want to do something they can do. When we talk about the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, right? Was it horrific for the Jews that were living under German occupation and German extermination to fight back, or should they have just, kept in their place? Should they have just sat back and behaved decently? Hey, you have a life, right? Is that a fair expectation to ask of Jewish people in the Warsaw ghettos? I don't think so. I think it's smart they fought back. I give them all the credit in the world for fighting back. That's all the Palestinians are doing, is fighting against an oppressive set of circumstances. Obviously, the historical parallels are not exact, but you get the idea. So, hey, is Mo here? If Mo's here, cool. Nice to have you here, Mo, if you're here. Dora, I'd love to bring you on, Dora. If you don't know who Dora is, I might bring Dora on just so you can hear her yell. I don't know if Dora has changed her tune, but I tell you what I'll do, just for entertainment's sake, I'm going to give the crowd a warning. But I think it's fun to listen to entertaining things sometimes. I've been on lives where this person named Dora has been there, and even on pro-Israeli lives, all Dora has done is she screams. She doesn't start out like a normal human being would say, hey, everybody, here's what I want to say today. I disagree with those kind of things. It's just screaming. So let's see if everything's changed with Dora's way. Let's just be curious to hear if Dora's doing her thing.
Where is Hamas? Where they are? Why they are hiding? Okay, why they don't come out? Okay, to fight like man to man, not to attack. Do you know what they do? They attack the city. They took the kids, women, and they hide. They call terrorists. Okay, they call them terrorists.
Dora, just to let you know, in the United States, when we fought the British, just to give you some historical perspective, the U.S. patriots, as we call them, I'm from America, they hid behind trees, and as the British convoys would go down the road, they would fire on the British. They would run away. Now, you talk about fighting like men or fighting
Run
fair.
away?
Our own,
What do you?
our own historical figures, Dora, were called by the British, wait for it, terrorists, for not standing up and fighting in the traditional battle lines that were the way of the day for most traditional military combat. So to say on the one hand, Hamas are abject terrorists for not fighting the way the Israelis would prefer they fight, versus the British, who called the American founding fathers terrorists, are you seeing a little bit of a disconnect there, Dora?
I didn't see nobody run away. Okay, I see the Americans, not American, Israel still there. They fighting. Okay, this is. Do you think this is war? This is more than war. Okay, this is not war. More than war. These people, they attack. They come. Okay, I sent some.
Just to let you know, Dora, you don't have to yell to get your point. You don't have to yell, okay? We can talk without screaming. I'm not screaming back to you.
Okay, listen, I sent some terrorists to your home, okay? They killed the man, take kids, take your wife, and what you gonna call them? This is not war. This is more than war. Here we have terrorists. These terrorists, they are hiding. They have to be done. If not, they will come back. Okay, they will.
Okay, so I have a fair question for you, Dora. This is a sincere question. What would you suggest the Palestinian people do, given their circumstances are viewed from their point of view, especially the more militant ones of them, that they have no chance to have a peaceful resolution with their neighbors, the Israelis, because of how oppressive the Israelis government and military has been towards their people for 7.5 decades? What should they do?
Okay, good people here, the Palestinian people, they are happy. Why? Happy they are happy for what did Hamas did. They are all terrorists. They don't care. If they care, why they don't make? Do you know, my friend? These people, the Netanyahu, he used give them water, power, even job. The man, all they go to neighbors to get the job. They give them job. Did you see what they done for the neighbor? They call it terrorists, okay? Hamas doesn't care about Palestinian. They don't care about them.
Well, let's talk for a second about that. Let's ask that question. Fair enough. Okay. The argument is that Hamas doesn't care about Palestinian people. I've heard people say that They love death, that they want death, that the Israelis are the only country in the region that like life, and all these Arab people love death, and et cetera, et cetera. So let's go back to the American colonies. Now, do you know, Dora, that people that resisted, that were caught by the British, were hung? So they were executed basically by the British for sedition, is what it was called back then. Now, would you say that if one American was fighting the British and they took his whole family and they hung the family as punishment, that the American fighting back hated his people, couldn't stand his people? And I realize that great harm has come to Palestinians because of their actions and the response that have taken place since by the Israeli government and Israeli military. But here's the question that you have to kind of reconcile with. Is it short-term versus long-term? So if you ask your child not to eat dessert, eat chocolate before dinner, do you hate your child for telling them what to do? Or do you look out for your child thinking that the
Listen,
long-term...
Mike, why every time?
Hold on. Almost done. I'll let you talk. Promise. Are you hating your child for that? Or are you trying to look at the long-term benefits for your child? If you're a fighter, do you look at the diversion of resources and money and power and conflict as a longer-term benefit that exceeds the short-term problems it causes? Is that a fair question to ask?
My friend, why every time you go back to America, do you think you are in this city? Do you think you are safe? There is no Hamas here. What happened here in America, huh? What happened in your city? How many Starbucks? If you are sitting in Starbucks, okay? Did they say they attack Starbucks? What happened? How many highway they stop highway here in America? Here, listen, here in America, they have Hamas more than in Israel. What do you think? Your city is not safe too. Why? From them. Do you think these people, they go out, they doing protests? No, they doing jihad. Today they attack Starbucks. Tomorrow they gonna attack your home. Your home, at home. They gonna attack your home. They take your wife. They kill the man, and same thing. These are terrorists. They call it
Okay, I think you made your point. You're saying that everyone's at danger from these people because they're fanatical. They don't know anything but violence. I think that's your argument. So first of all, let's dissect that for a second, Dora. Let's talk about seriously. Just let's look at that argument. So first of all, why would Palestinian come after America right now and attack a Starbucks and then come over and take somebody's wife and kids? You're saying, if I understand you correctly, that there's no reason with people, they're barbarians, there's no connection between their behavior, they're just abject, violent human beings that want nothing to do but just terrorize people. Dora, come on, do you really believe that? You sounds like you really believe that, but
listen, Tip, do you think...
does that make sense? Does that make sense to you?
Do you think this has happened because October 7? Oh, before October 7, for many, many years, these people, Palestinian people, they go, he put around himself bomb and he go close to Jewish people. He do Allahu Akbar and he bomb himself. He put in the car. He filled his car full of bomb and he go close to them. He say Allahu Akbar. He bomb himself. They're gonna do same thing here in your country. Are you happy with this one? Do you support this one, people? Listen, these people, they doing jihad. Jihad is more important for everything. Even they don't care about the kids. Okay, they don't care. Muslim people, they don't care about the kids. If they care, okay, let's see if they care about the kids. Why they don't make at least one country for them? They don't have even one country. All Muslim countries, they are garbage. They can't make water. They can't make power.
Hold on a second, Dora. Now, let me just repeat the words you just said to make sure. You said all Muslim countries are garbage. They can't make water. They can't make power. Now, that's not an accurate statement. First of all, I'm not going to say something like, all certain people are garbage. There's a huge variety of people in the Muslim world. There's differences among different countries where Islam is the predominant religion. So to say that they're all garbage is a completely terrible thing to say. Just like I think it's bad for people to call anybody from the group with whom you associate as garbage or all bad. That's a terrible thing for people to say. Hold on, let me finish. You said they can't make water, they can't make power. That's not true. In fact, if you look at what's happened inside of Gaza alone in the last the year since The Israelis have damaged and destroyed things like desalination plants, water treatment facilities, air travel. They've made it impossible for them to be self-sufficient. It's not because they can't do it. It's because the control that Israel exerts over the territory makes it impossible for them to do it. Oh, sorry about it. Go ahead. I just wanted you to do.
Wait, are you okay? Do you think this one Israel, this one city, big city, strong city, they wait for this for Gaza to make something? What are you talking about? And don't, yeah, all of them is garbage. All of them, they wait for you. They wait for Christian man. They wait for people, for Jewish people to give them water, power. And don't tell me about the Dubai. Everyone here, Dubai is business city, business country. Dubai even is business country. They make this country. They built this country for who? They built for the the rich people. There is too many Muslim people. They are rich, so they go where? In Dubai. They go where? In Qatar. And the third one is Saudi. Three of this country now, they rich. They don't want them. They don't want them. Why? Because they are poor. They don't have money. So this city is for the business country, for business people who they have money. You have money, you go there. You don't have money.
Okay, and just one last thought, Dora. You're actually sharing some information today in a way that's better than I've heard you. But you don't. Just let you know, passion is great, but you don't have to scream to be passionate. So, what I'm curious to know, Dora, just in fairness, is human being to human being. Let's forget about Israel Palestine for a second. I'm Chip. You're Dora. If you and I met at the grocery store in I don't know, wherever you live, and we were having a normal conversation like, "Hi, isn't the weather nice today?" "Yes." "Oh, that's a beautiful daughter you have," or whatever. How would we talk? Would you be screaming at me, or is this something you do all the time? Are you Gilbert Gottfried from Israel? Like, what's going on here?
My friends, here, let's say these people, they have shahada. You know what is shahada? The shahada important for Muslim people more than the life, okay? That's why you see them, they come in your country. You are in America, in Canada, in Europe. What they doing? She come here. What's she doing? The hijab woman, okay? Just tell me what she's doing. She opened. Do you know what she opened? Her vagina, and she having baby. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Hold on a second, Dora. Now listen, I think there's certain places we don't want to go. The thing I'm hearing from your voice, and I'll give you a chance to respond and tell me if I'm wrong. Okay, it sounds to me like you're saying that all people who practice Islam or are Muslims are terrorists, and all they want to do is go on this jihad, I guess, to conquer other people who aren't Muslim or who should be forced to believe or convert to Islam, and that women who leave Arab countries and go to Western countries open their legs and have multiple children to try to change the population demographic towards the same aim. Is that what you're saying?
Listen, okay. He come here from first wife, 10 kids. Second wife, 10 kids. Third, they cannot have four wives. Each wife, 10 kids. So you are, how many kids you have? How many kids you have? Even you can have maybe 2, just 2, okay? When they come here, what they doing? They're gonna take your land by what? By the kids. By the kids. Open, please, wake up. Wake up. Don't support these people. These people, Habibi, honey, they don't care about the land. They don't care. There is any Jewish people in Iraq? No. There is any Jewish people in Egypt? No. In Somal? No. So why come they come here? They go out. Why they doing jihad? Why they cry for land? You don't care about the land, you know, right now, you know, now. If the America open the border, they all come, run. They're gonna leave the land. They don't care about the land, okay? They don't care about the land. They don't.
Okay, Dora. Listen, the only reason I did that was because it's hard for me to get a word in. We don't have like a conversation. You have like a one-way. It's like a one-way mic on a walkie-talkie. You never let go of the button. Real quick, let me respond to that, and then Dora, I want to let some other people share in the conversation. You're welcome to stay though, and I appreciate your passion. I know you like to let yourself be heard. I think it's unfair. Someone in the comments said, "Hey, I'm Muslim. I have a husband and 1 child." So I think to say that everybody has, 4 or 5 partners, which first of all is illegal in some countries, in the United States, polygamy, and then has 10 or 15 children per partner, to have all these children and then somehow infiltrate or change the demographics of societies with some sort of takeover concept, I think is quite frankly, absurd. And if you believe that, you're welcome to believe it. I think it's not accurate. And the other thing is, I don't believe, and again, I could be wrong, Dora, but I don't believe that this conflict is driven by the ideology of hate and conquest and conversion. I think Christians have done that in the past. The things like the Crusades, where they literally tried to bring the gospel to everybody at the end of a gun. But I believe that what drives this, you say it's not about land. I completely disagree. In fact, just within this last chapter, let's just look at what's happened since the 7th. If you eliminate everything, what's happening? The Israeli military are moving people from the north of Gaza south towards the southern tip. That's land. That's land acquisition and conquest by the Israeli military. You can justify it however you want to justify it, Dora, saying that because these people came in on the 7th and did these terrible things that you love to point out, and I think it's not unfair to point them out. But look what's happening. The people are losing the land. The people have had their homes destroyed. They're homeless. They're living in tents. And what's happening? Now they're being bombed again. The Israelis are putting bombs and missiles in the territory. Let me let somebody else jump in, Donna. You're welcome to stay here. Let's let Isa come in real quick.
Hey, what's up, Chip?
Hey.
No, I just wanted to kind of respond to what she was saying regarding, I guess Muslims having children. I mean, this is one of the reasons why we're here, right? To be fruitful. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if in fact the religion taught to, unalive all kinds of people and, grape and things like this, then yeah, I would agree with her. But the sad reality is that that's what's in their book. So everything that she's talking about is just a projection from what they believe, unfortunately. I mean, that's really all that I wanted to say. If you're, I don't think she should just be sitting here projecting. I mean, we already know Israel will try to do anything and everything that they can to try to get a better look from the public, right? They want people to look at them as if they're some godsend, people chosen by God, and they're like just stellar people. No, this is just absolutely not true. So
No, this is true. No. Hamas starts.
Hold on, Dora. Let him finish.
They come to your house.
Dora, let me finish. I don't want to drop you. Please just let him finish.
No, I mean, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Israel is doing a bunch of atrocities, and I mean, we can see it. If you can't see it, then something is wrong with you.
All right. Thanks for sharing your point of view. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, Dora, I want to ask you a question before you jump in and share your point of view. I want to ask you this, okay? So, Dora, you have a very strong set of views, and I understand, I believe your point of view as you've been sharing it. I think a lot of people agree with you. They're angry about not only what happened on October 7th, but they see the rocket fire. And they think, why are we constantly under threat from these people who are out to get us? Like we're this small group of people living in this huge territory of people who practice Islam, they're Arab, and we have differences, and therefore all these people want to do is get rid of us. I understand that viewpoint. I've heard it stated multiple times. And if that was the glasses through which I saw the world, I can understand you saying a lot of the things you're saying. It's a very defensive, sort of victim-oriented framework to speak from. The question I think is fair to ask, Dora, and again, I'm not trying to belittle anybody here, but I'm saying if you stepped outside of this situation, let's say you weren't partisan, you have no relationship to anybody who's Jewish, who's Israeli, who's Palestinian, who's Muslim, Arab, any of that stuff, and you sat back and you're able to look at it from that vantage point. That's who I try to be. Now, people say I'm not that person, but that's really who I aspire to be. And so in doing that, from that, I don't have relationships with anybody in Israel. I don't know anybody who's Jewish who supports Israel. I don't know anybody from Palestine. I don't know any Muslims or Palestinian Americans. I just don't have these relationships. So I try to see it from what I understand it to be objectively as I can. So when I'm hearing you speak, Dora, and others who speak like you speak, I'm hearing it from a very, very, very one-sided view. And I'm sympathetic to the side that you're sharing because if I were in the shoes that you're in, I might feel the very same way. But the point I'm trying to make is you're laying out all of these actions as if they happen for their own reasons in and of themselves. For example, you're ascribing them to religious fervor, to fundamentalism, evangelicalism, to aspirations to take over and practice global jihad. There may be some of that in the mix. Probably among the world Muslim population, there may be a percentage, I don't know the exact number, that believe those very things. There's got to be
Listen,
some.
my friend.
However, I'm almost done. I'll hand the mic over to you. However, I believe that's the vast minority. I think most people are just like normal people. They just want to get through their day and have kids and have a good life. That's most people, right? Most people aren't crazy. So to put that label on a large group the way you have, I think is completely unfair at best and worse at, different terms at worst. But let's put that aside. Is it possible, Dora,
They
that there
have
are
kids.
things...
They love their kids. Why they?
Hold on. Is it possible, Dora? I'll let you on. Is it possible that there are things that the Israeli government and the Zionist movement have done and continue to do that precipitate what's going on rather than minimize what's happened? Is that possible?
Listen, all country, Muslim countries, they have no land. No land for all Muslim.
Hold on, Dora. I asked you a very specific question. Let me repeat
They
it
have
for you.
land in Saudi Arabia.
Let me repeat it for you in case you didn't hear it. Okay. So rather than us talking past each other, Dora, let's talk with each other for a second here. My question I wanted to ask you was: is it possible that what the Israeli government, the Israeli military, and the Zionist movement has chosen to do, how it's carried itself, its behavior, that has precipitated some or all of what we've seen happening as a response to that behavior? Or is it all, in your opinion, being done because of this insanity that's driven by hatred and religious ideology?
So what do you think? When I come, I attack your house, I take your kids, I take your wife. What you gonna do, please? What you gonna do?
Let me say it a third time. Is it possible, Dora? Is it possible that what the Israeli government, the Israeli military, and the Zionist movement have chosen to do with its behavior and actions has contributed to, rather than minimize, the responses that we've seen that involve the... Then you can start with the explanation. Let's talk about that first. Then we can talk about the atrocious nature of things that you think are so objectionable. Let's just cover that point, please.
With Israel, look at me. I'm ex-Muslim. I'm with them. I'm with Jewish people from now until I die. Okay, they doing the right because they doing the right job. They have to finish all Hamas from everywhere. From everywhere.
All right, I gave it my best try. I really did, because what I try to do, Dora, is, again, you and I both seem to understand English as well as anybody else. Just one sec. To ask a straightforward, fair question, by the way, without any sort of leading things. And for some reason, the inability to address it is very pronounced. And I know you want to get your words out about the things you're angry about. You said you're a former Muslim that's converted to Judaism, and you believe that they can do no wrong, and all the wrong is on the other side. I don't think that's an objective point of view. And if that's what you really believe, it's your right to believe it. But to not address any of the surrounding context that comes into play here, I think is disingenuous at best and ludicrous at worst. That's my opinion. You can disagree, but I think that you're unfortunately, Dora, you're so partisan you can't see it any other way, which is unfortunate because everything is a shade of gray. It's not so black and white. Okay. We have is it True?
Yes. Yeah, I've been watching you, and I think I'm following you too. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when people say they're ex-Muslims, that tells you they're lying right there. Anyways, but the way she was just screaming at you, I don't think she's understanding what your point of view is, because she's just going on and just has a lot of hatred, and she doesn't want to hear anything that you got to say already. I mean, the way she keeps screaming. But yeah, I just wanted to ask her, it doesn't matter religion. I mean, they always bring up religion. It has nothing to do with religion. I mean, according to them, they believe God gave them this land, which is, even in the Torah, doesn't even say that. But let's say if God did give them that land thousands of years ago, but then when they fled, they didn't flee. Most of them Yes, they were I can't remember the word, but anyways, they fled. They went to Europe and all over the world to seek work or whatever. You can't.
They didn't flee. They were exiled out. They were pushed out of Israel.
They were pushed out. That's what you think they're doing.
Hold on a second. Let's let True finish his thoughts.
One more. I mean, if they were pushed out thousands and thousands of years ago, you can't. The ones that were pushed out, are they still around? I mean, your ancestors and ancestors and ancestors. Now all of a sudden you want to come and claim land when people are already living there, Christians, Muslims, and Jews. How is that moral that you come and take back land, forcing people to leave their home? I mean, the UN was formed after World War II, so this doesn't happen. They didn't form the UN to go out and do whatever anyone wants to do. They formed the UN so that way this would not happen again. So no one can go and claim.
Sir, let me ask you a question.
Hold on. Listen, Dapper. First of all, the way I work my lives, I'm happy to hear what you have to say. Please stop unmuting because I'm trying to keep you muted. There's background noise. And the second thing is, and we interrupt each other, we never can get good conversation. So I'm happy to give you a turn. True, ask a question or what you want to say, and then let me let Dapper respond, okay?
Yes, I'm going to ask him, how is it moral now since 1948, they did let the Jews in 1947, but Britain had no right to give anyone's land away. In 1948, when the Zionists, actually they're atheists, they're not even religious, that was formed Zionism, came and formed the Nakba. They basically caused the Nakba to happen, and they pushed out over 1 million people from their homes. But according to the UN, they have the right of return, but now nobody can be able to return to that land.
So can I respond to him, or is he going to keep talking?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on. Hey, Dapper, calm down, man. Listen, I don't know how many lives you go on. I told you I'd give you a turn. Let me give him a second to finish. I gave Dora like 11 or 12 minutes. So you'll get your turn, I promise. Just calm down.
I'm done. Let him go ahead and respond. That's fine.
Okay.
I'm very calm, but he's spewing a lot of nonsense and not things that are not true. Number one, the Nakba was when the armies from Egypt and the surrounding countries, they attacked Israel, okay? And they told the Palestinians to leave. They left on their own, number one, okay? And number two...
Hold on. Now, you don't want to talk about spouting nonsense?
Yeah, I was going to respond, but I didn't want to interrupt.
You just made that. I got to stop you there, okay? Put your thinking cap on for just 1 second. I'm happy to let you finish your point. But if you're going to call somebody out for nonsense and then say something that's about as absurd as it gets, was there a statement made that there was going to be the idea of a return after conflict? Yes, that statement was made public. How did most people leave where they stayed? They didn't leave under those circumstances. They were forced to leave after people in the adjacent village were slaughtered, or as they were being forced with a gun to leave their home, or both. That's what happened to most people. Some of what
That's what you were told. That's what you were told, but that's not exactly what happened. What happened was they were told by the surrounding countries, okay, Egypt, Lebanon, all those countries, to leave, and then they can come back once they finished out all the Jewish people, okay? And after the wars, Israel even allowed people to come back, okay? There was about 700,000 people, about 200,000 people that came back after the war, okay? The rest of them that didn't come back, that's on them, number one. Number two, when you...
Hold on a second, Dapper. Listen, man, I'm happy to hear what you have to say, but here's my humble suggestion, okay? You're saying that people are led to believe something different. You have been led to believe something that's inaccurate when it says that. I have proof of it.
And we can agree to disagree. We can.
No. We're not going to agree to disagree on factual history. You can't have it both ways. People from Israel and people who are from the Zionist movement, including David Ben-Gurion and others, the Irgun, admit that they forcibly expelled Palestinians out of villages. That negates exactly what you're saying, that people just up and left because of some promise that was made to them to come back after we finish the other. That didn't happen that way. You can't make a claim that has nothing to do with factual and say, well, we just agree to disagree. Yeah, the sun comes up every day. You can't negate that. We can't agree to disagree on the sunrise.
That's your interpretation, but that's not what happened. Number two, you're talking about, you know, the symptom of what's going on right now. The reason why the IDF is doing what it's doing is because of T attacks that happened on October 7th. You don't want to talk about what happened on October 7th. You always want to go back. Why don't you talk about the hostages that are in Gaza right now? Babies, women, children, elderlies, that they're being held captive over there and being tortured and raped. And why don't you talk about when they came?
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Now, first of all,
Yeah, and you don't let me.
because you're saying things about me that aren't true. I want to be clear. You get clarification. So if you haven't followed me for a while, you probably haven't. You're saying these things absent context. I do talk about those things all the time, by the way, all the time. I condemn any civilians being harmed during the attacks of 10/7. I have questions as to how extensive the attacks were vis-a-vis the military and what happened with regard to some of the more egregious allegations. You just made a statement with certainty that the hostages who were taken are being harmed in certain ways. I don't believe there's any proof for that. There's a lot of conjecture about these things. As far as talking about the hostages, I talk about it all the time. I think it was unfair that any hostages were taken. Hold on a second, true. So you're making claims about me for which you have no idea what you're saying. I've talked about it constantly. So rather than making these assumptions, why don't you speak from a position of what you know versus what you presume? Is that fair?
We can, yeah, of course. But what you asked Dora a question saying that, you know, they validate what they did on October 7th because what happened, what Israel's government is doing to the Palestinians. But the reason why what Israel is doing to the Palestinians is because, you know, the blockade and all that is because of how they act. When they consistently, you know, throw rockets into Israel indiscriminately and do collective punishment on innocent Jewish people living in Israel, Israel is going to respond. So your question is, what came first, the chicken or the egg? You know, Israel is not responding out of nowhere just to attack and unalive innocent Palestinians. They're responding to protect themselves, to protect the civilians, and from the attacks that's coming in from Gaza and the Palestinians in the West Bank. They come into Israel, they start shooting people, they ram their cars into innocent people. So Israel is responding to that.
Can I respond?
Real quick, let me share something and I'll let True respond. Dapper, thanks for sharing your views. I'm not going to drop you. Yeah, okay, couple things. Okay, talk about chicken or the egg. And if you really believe that what happened in 1948 was a voluntarily a journey, like somebody just decided to leave one day and with the hopes of coming back for someone else's promise, you have a different interpretation of reality than what I've understood. You say degree to disagree. Okay, that was the chicken. That was the beginning of this whole thing that caused this. Now, since then, you have to ask yourself, why does somebody fire rockets? It's been ascribed to terrorism. That these people just hate Jewish people. They want to unalive and cleanse Jewish people. That's the claim that's made to substantiate the response. As you said, what should Israel do? My point about this is the following. Hey, Butch, real quick, keep the note down. My point about this is this. Why do they fire the rockets? Obviously, we know that Israel withdrew its settlements in 2005 and then subsequently pointed out that, hey, these people are now firing at us. We can't do anything. We give them this land, quote unquote, give them this land. And look what they do. They fire at us. I agree that sending rockets with no guidance indiscriminately into potential civilian areas is wrong. I agree with that. And I always ask this question. I asked it to Dora. I'll ask it to you. I didn't say anything about it. You said I said it justifies it. I didn't say anything. I asked a question. Does the behavior of the Israeli government and its military play a role in increasing the likelihood of what we're seeing or decreasing it? That's what I asked. And I couldn't get an answer out of Dora. And my response would be that yes, the way the Israelis have chosen to go about dealing with this situation is what has exacerbated this. You may say, well, what else are they supposed to do? I will tell you what else they're supposed to do. Stop building settlements. Dismantle settlements. Pull back to the pre-1967 borders. Give the Palestinians a chance for their own autonomy. Then you'll see a cessation of hostilities. But Israel's done none of those things. In fact, they've done way more than what I just said. In addition to coming into the West Bank and making lives an absolute miserable experience for Palestinians, they've blockaded the entirety of Gaza they've gotten rid of all access by air, by land, and by sea. So other than tunneling, which is the only way to get anything in and out without Israeli control, Israel controls everything that happens in Gaza.
All right,
It's been,
you're highly mistaken.
I'm gonna go on for a second here. I'm gonna finish.
You
So
make a lot of points. You got to let me respond.
No, I can do whatever the hell I want, but I'm going to let you respond. I have you here. I wanted to get. By the way, if you don't know, True wanted to respond, and then it's going to be Butch, and then you can come back on. You got to take turns. But as the host, I got people come here to watch me. Let's face it. And I'm going to share my point of view, and then I'll let others join in. So the point I'm trying to make is to look at that set of circumstances from the point of view of those who are implementing them, and say, how dare you fight back, and how dare you do these things because of what we're doing. It's stimulus response, not response stimulus. What Israel has done has precipitated the responses over time. Israel does A, Palestinians do B. Israel does C, Palestinians do D. It's not the Palestinians one day woke up and said, how can I kill a bunch of Jews? Let me think, oh, that's a good idea, let's go do this. And then Israel responds back. That's not the way it's been.
Why don't you read the
One more time. I'm sorry, I got to do this. Sorry, but I don't want to let you go. Come on back up if you want to take your turn. I'm happy to have you here, just not interrupting. So the question you have to ask yourself is, if Israel really wanted peace, what would it be willing to do? And the answer is nothing. It wants more control, not less. It's not willing to give an inch. And therefore, there's not going to be peace, because as long as you have somebody who's controlling you, not willing to give an inch, not give peace a chance, you're not going to have peace. And therefore, you're going to perpetuate inevitable resistance. That's what's going on here. That's what will always go on here. You wanted to say something real quick, True?
Yeah. Before October 7th, there was an issue that happened in the West Bank between the settlers, the IDF, what they did in the West Bank on the 5th and the 6th. You need to ask them what happened then and what caused the trigger when they shot that kid in the West Bank. That's what happened. I got to get going, but I appreciate your honesty. But yeah, he needs to know what happened on the 5th and the 6th before the October 7th. Let's not just jump to October 7th every time they want to start a conversation.
Listen, you're here spreading a narrative that's false. And
Dapper.
That's the truth, and you look it up and see what happened on October 5th, what the settlers did in the West Bank.
Listen, real quick, True, real quick. So, guys, women, ladies and gentlemen, so let me just repeat real quickly for the sake of the audience how I run my lives. Okay, I want to be fair about this. Yes, do I take some airtime more than other people? Yes, I do. Perhaps that's my fault. Okay, I think a lot of people enjoy my perspective. It's a show that I run because I like to do it the way I do it, but I'll try to be fair and give people plenty of time to talk. I gave Dora, 15 minutes or so. I think people were enjoying Dora. I do too. I just disagree with Dora. But in terms of the back and forth of this, I don't like people interrupting each other. Now, I do sometimes let people come up and have a back and forth where it can be manageable, but just to let you know, Dapper, I know you want to get a word in. I respect that. But we have to take turns to make this work. And if people always jump in, they unmute their mic and jump in, and say, doesn't work. Doesn't work. Now, if you believe what Dapper believes, that the story that's been told, that a bunch of Arab countries told every single person in Palestine, hey, take off, guys. You can come back when we finish off these pesky Jewish people. If you believe that story, then everything's going to flow from that according to your understanding. I think that's 100% bullshit. I think it played a role in what was happening at the time, but it wasn't the totality of what happened at the time. Many people were forcibly expelled from where they lived. Many people were killed. Just under 15,000 people were killed. Did the Arabs giving the warning kill those people? Dapper? Did they commit suicide? Dapper? Or were they killed by violent gangs of Jewish Zionists? Dapper. Okay? So I think to make the statement and make that the foundation of your argument that everything flows from this innocent country that was just trying to have a safe place for Jewish people that all of a sudden is being attacked and therefore everything else subsequent is justified is in open. This is layman's terms. Effing bullshit. Read a book. Watch a documentary. Educate yourself. I'm not trying to be mean about that, but you're talking like somebody who doesn't have historical perspective on this. You're trying to take on a narrative that is used to justify subjugation, exploitation, and everything that's happened since this, including what's happening right now. Somebody says, you are wrong. Well, Big D, let's tell you what, Big D, come on up. Let's talk about it, Big D. I'll let you speak. I'll give you 2 minutes uninterrupted. How about that, Big D? And we'll have a conversation about it. I could be wrong. You're right. I don't know. I don't know everything. That's for damn sure. Butch, there's a lot of background noise. I don't know if that's going on with Butch or with me, but a lot of background noise. All right, Butch has been waiting patiently. Butch, what's on your mind today?
I just wanted to say you're very well read. Everything he says is exactly what it is. I mean, you've done research. There's no doubt in my mind. As far as some of the things these people say, this is why you have what you have over there. People that are uneducated, don't do any research, but yet they want to express, well, it's okay to do this, it's okay to do that. And then they come up with these false facts. But I just commend you. I was just actually listening. I hit the request and I was in here. That's what I wanted to tell you. You're right on the money on so many things. I'm not saying you read, but your research. I credit you for that. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, thank you, Butch. I appreciate that.
And
again,
also, one other thing is, you ask yourself,
I just wanted to tell you, you're breaking up pretty badly. Let me see if we can get you back on now. Can everybody hear Butch? I couldn't hear Butch. He's breaking up. Yeah, Butch, let's hear what. If you want to come back and finish the thought, please do. You're breaking up. We can't hear. I can't hear a word you're saying. Unfortunately, I'd love to hear it. But thank you for the compliment. And again, there's what happened, and there's what people think or say about what happened. And unfortunately, up to 15,000 people were killed. 700,000 plus people left their homes. That's what happened. And then people give different reasons for why or how that happened. And it seems like some people think it was all voluntary. I think that's a pretty absurd way to look at it. I mean, how many people voluntarily, if I came to your place right now and said, hey, trust me, leave your house, and in another 10 days you can come back, and you'd be like, I'm not going anywhere, dude. What the hell's wrong with you? That's pretty crazy. Okay. And by the way, there are people in the comments saying things like, you're wrong and you're spreading lies, or you're a liar, or you don't know the history. Let's focus on one issue, because it's very easy to put everything in one big bucket and say you're a fool or whatever, but let's talk details. Everyone who always says that says, you don't, and then they never give any, there's no follow-up. So I'm happy to have people come up and talk about different things. If you make a very strong declarative statement of what happened as if it's the only way to view it, I have to stop you and say, hey, that's not the only way to view this. And if you do historical research like I've done, I don't know anybody in Palestine. I don't know anybody in Israel. I have no real reason to care. In fact, I've done videos saying if the script were flipped, in other words, if it was an Arab nation that was founded out of historic Palestine and Jewish people were marginalized and were sent packing and unalived or asked to leave, or all three, and then they later were further treated by this Arab entity that took its course, I would criticize the Arab entity for what it's doing. It's about the actions and the oppressive behavior, not from whom it comes. And so therefore, to say that I hate Jewish people or I hate Israel is not true. It's about the power dynamics that I despise and the actions that are played out from those power dynamics. So if you think that's unfair, then how would you else like me to look at it? That's as fair as I can make it. So if there was this Palestinian dominant force backed by the United States that had weapons and arms and power and political support at the UN and got away with everything under the sun, dispossessing Jewish people of their homes and unaliving their kids, and a more militant element of this Jewish resistance fought back periodically in horrific ways, unaliving Arab civilians in cafes and buses and elsewhere. And so more security measures were put in place, walls, checkpoints, etc., blockade, siege, all these things. I would blame the Arab government. You started this crap, Arab government. You're repressing these people. Their response is a response to the crap you started, to the repression you're enforcing. Period. Full stop. End of story. How can that be hating Israelis or Jews? How? So I try to be consistent as best I can. As the previous guest was nice enough to say, Butch, thank you. I try to read a lot. I try to understand it from an independent standpoint. I know you're not going to make a lot of people happy by taking certain points of view that are strong on one side or the other, but I don't buy the Israeli narrative. I understand it. I appreciate people who hold it. I don't try to disrespect them, but also when they come out and try to make it sound like that interpretation is factually correct, it's not. It's a take on what happened. What happened is 700,000 plus people had to go at the end of a gun, and they had to move elsewhere, and they've since been treated like dog shit, as if they don't exist, that they have no rights, they're nobodies at the end of Israeli supremacy. That's what's happened. So how can you blame anybody for resisting that? I can't blame somebody for resisting that. My forefathers resisted it when we had British that were occupying where we lived. I can't condemn Palestinian militant groups for resisting. I don't have to agree with the way they resisted to say I understand it. I don't even support it per se, but I understand it and I can't condemn it. That's what I'm trying to say. And I hope that's fair. For God's sakes, that goes anywhere. There's an oppression versus a resistance. It's the same thought process. It just happens to apply to this particular issue this way. I don't want to keep repeating myself, but okay. We have Wally. And Wally, how you doing? Or is Nadia here? Wally, are you there?
I don't know who first.
Go ahead, Nadia. I think Wally can come up after you.
Okay. Oops, just dropped something. Okay. So we go through different emotions as advocates, as human rights workers, as trying to be part of this movement to change things. And my first emotion was, of course, devastatingly disappointed in my own government and kind of sad and sad for the people that are going through this, And most recently, my latest emotion is one of anger. I am becoming increasingly angry at my government. The fact that our tax dollars, we have no control over where our tax dollars are going. We have no vote in it. We have no say in it. And it's going to weapons killing innocent women and children to the tune of 30,000 that we're aware of so far. And the fact that Egypt is now getting involved and they are going to trap these people is making me even more angry, because I know we're working with the Egyptian government as well as the Israeli government. So my anger is right now on a personal level that I have friends and family that are not agreeing with me, which is fine, they can disagree, but they're denying that this is a genocide, right? And so I've had to choose recently to actually lose friends, to actually cut off friends that I've known for years. I have a friend that works in New York as a journalist, and I invited her to Eric Warsaw's live last night, and she said she didn't have the bandwidth or the time for it. And I said, you don't have the bandwidth and the time for it? The people of Gaza, the people of Palestine don't have the bandwidth and the time for it because they're fucking dying over here. And I'm becoming increasingly angry. I'm no longer depressed. I'm pissed. I hate Netanyahu and I hate our government right now. And Thomas Jefferson said, the great Thomas Jefferson said, the greatest form of patriotism is dissent. That's what we did to the British. That's what we need to do right now. We need to organize. We need to protest. I know we're doing that right now. I know we're doing it right now, but we need to do more of it. We need to do more of it as Americans. We need to do more of it. This has gone on long enough. And the problem is the chickens are going to come home to roost. Last statement I want to make. The chickens are going to come home to roost because this can turn into World War III. Iran may get involved. Egypt may get involved. We have neighbors. We have Turkey that's a NATO member. We need to get real about this, people. We need a ceasefire now before this escalates. Okay? I'm angry. I'm venting. I usually don't do this. I'm usually very calm. But the fact that my own friends, a Columbia University trained journalist that works for the New York Times, and she went to Harvard, cannot get on board and say this is a genocide, I'm done. I'm done with these people that don't understand what's happening. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nadia. Wow, yeah, I feel her anger and her frustration, I think. But and by the way, if we're feeling this anger and frustration as independent observers, having learned about this in various instances, how do you think the people are who have been enduring this for decades must feel? And generation after generation being subjected to these horrific conditions and being a pawn in someone else's game on the losing end. Imagine that for a second. How hard that must be to physically be enduring on the other end of the decisions. And that's why when I asked Dora earlier, and I meant it in good faith, because I think it's fair, I think to look at anything, listen, I understand the Israeli perspective and the people who support Israel. I really do understand it. I disagree with it because I think it's lopsided. And if it was happening to Jewish people, they'd be outraged. If the same thing were happening to Palestinians were happening to Jewish people, there'd be international condemnation and outrage, right? Because obviously it's a different standard that gets applied when it comes to Jewish people. There's a lot of sensitivities because of what happened, and rightly so because of the Holocaust. I agree with that. However, you can't have different standards. You have to keep the same standard. That's the point I try to make. And what's happening to Palestinians is horrific. And I think the anger that Nadia expressed is a lot of people are feeling that. And a lot of people are waking up. I think the challenge that we're realizing, those of us who are awakening and try to speak truth to power and be like, WTF, guys, what the hell are we doing here? Is that we're realizing that the political process in which we're supposed to be able to exert our rights and our voice is broken beyond belief. And groups like AIPAC and other influence groups, different business communities, different moneyed interests are really the ones who control what goes on with respect to the elected officials who are supposed to represent the constituents, but instead represent special interest and money. And that's an irrevocably broken system, I believe. And unfortunately, as much as I'd like to say otherwise, if you followed me for any amount of time, you know this is how I feel. I don't believe that voting alone will change this system. That if we just got enough right people in there, that it would change. It's not going to change it. Because the power dynamics that incentivize or punish those who get in hasn't changed and doesn't change. That's what needs to change. It's the relationship of the money and the lobbying and the revolving door and the corruption and the embedded portion of the national security apparatus, which includes, three-letter agencies, surveillance, intelligence, and media. All those forces brought to bear is what's causing our problem right now. And therefore, that's what has to be either damaged or dismantled or both for things to change dramatically. And it's at the center of the entire global power system. And to change that is a big, big, big ask. And none of those people who are currently benefiting from that status quo are going to go through it willingly. They're not going to give up power without a major fight. And they have the money, and they have the resources, and they have the institutional backing to perpetrate their side of the fight over those of us who'd want to resist. And if you know what's going on and behind the scenes right now, a lot of things are being done. I haven't talked about it here much, to prevent the very uprising that needs to occur for these changes to occur. And the people in power know it all too well. They see the writing on the wall with inflation and frustration over foreign wars and the way money's put out to help, the weapons manufacturers over the people. This reality is not lost on most people in our society. Many people are still, in the clouds as far as thinking that we have this representative democracy and that things will work out eventually because we have the Americans. But it's all bullshit. It's all a story that we've been told from birth. So just like the Israelis get this, it's the same propaganda. So if we really want to have a better future, including what's happening right now, which is the most egregious, the worst of us, which is to support an actual genocide on live camera, we have to change the power dynamic. And I know getting out in the streets is like, it's the least we can do, and going on someone's live and listening, like Nadia just said, is the least we can ask of people to give a shit, to pull your head out of the sand, to maybe step outside your normal lane and listen and learn. But that tells you how much work it's going to be to organize people, to get people out of their lane, to participate in some of these more risky and dangerous and difficult, but much necessary actions to achieve changes. And personally speaking, and not to be negative, just as an observer, someone who's trying to be politically neutral, I don't think it's going to happen. And it's not because it shouldn't happen and not because it doesn't need to happen. It's because Americans are conditioned to take different courses of action to achieve change. We're led to believe, I believe highly erroneously, that by going to vote and doing your civic duty, that is the path to change your democratic society. And that if you just do that enough, and if you just call enough people and just get enough people to vote for this particular candidate or start a new party or whatever, you fill in your blank, that it'll change things. It hasn't done much of a damn thing. Now, politics do affect some issues. That's irrefutable. You have Supreme Court justice appointments. That's a big one. You have fiscal policy domestically where money gets allocated. That's big. You have regulation and other types of, things helping the poor versus helping the rich, tax policy, that kind of stuff. But most of the fundamental issues that control the way the U.S. works in the world and the powerful are protected don't change and won't change and will continue to get worse for the average human being in America as time goes by, as more and more of the money that they used to keep go to the people that already have the most of it. And everything's geared around protecting that. And that's unfortunate. I'm having Eddie Liger, who's Midwestern Marks on TikTok. He's going to be a guest on my show on Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. I'll do an announcement video. And Eddie's talking about these exact same things. The working class in America is being squeezed like never before. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. And life is getting nothing but better and better and better for the richest among us. And there's a reason behind that. It's not by accident. It didn't just happen. And similarly, what's happening with Palestinians is getting worse and worse and worse and worse. That's not happening by accident. That's happening as a direct result of U.S. foreign policy. The U.S. has a lot of power to bring to bear when it comes to this conflict. The U.S. could say in 1 second, the American president could call Netanyahu and says, it's over. The money's done. The military support is done. The UN cover, it's gone. You have none of it. It's going away unless you stop doing this and unless you change your ways. That would change it. Because Israel cannot get away with what it's doing internationally without the U.S. providing its veto at the UN. Can't do it. Israel would be guilty of all sorts of things, would be convicted and taken to task on so many different things if it did not have the U.S. backing it militarily, financially, and politically. And that's what should happen. The Israelis should be held to account for what they've done, to stop what they're doing, to have to deal with what they've done and be accountable, just like the Germans were. What the Israelis are doing is a less extensive, but just as morally, reprehensible set of actions that are carried out by regimes who want to systematically remove and dehumanize a group that are other than them. That's what Israel's doing. Make no bones about it. That's exactly what they're doing. And it's horrific. And I agree with Nadia. It enrages you. At first you feel really sad and upset, and then you just get this anger within you. You want to see it change. How can this be happening under our name with our money? It's completely unacceptable. I agree. It makes me very angry, and I'm not even the one enduring it. So now that's how I feel. Now, I'm just a guy. Nadia is just a woman. We see it from that vantage point. Other people see this far differently. So I try to be respectful and listen to other people's points of view as best I can. If they're saying something that's so incredibly blatantly off the wall, ridiculously untrue, I sometimes will stop somebody and say, hey, let's just clarify this one point before we keep going ahead. Because, Anyway, so there was somebody here that says, Ofri says, so much nonsense with a Star of David next to your name. So Ofri, in fairness, let's do this. I don't know if you're male or female, but I'll just say my friend Ofri. What is so much nonsense? Is there anything in particular that is nonsensical in what I just said? Pick one. About what the Israeli military and government has chosen to do for decades, what's happening to Palestinians in terms of the bombs that are dropping on them, the forcible displacement of Palestinians from the north of Gaza to the center of Gaza to the south of Gaza, the tent cities that they're in, the bombing of said 10 cities, the routes they were told to evacuate, the bombing of the evacuation routes, the hospitals that have been bombed, evacuated, snipers shot in, babies left inside incubators, homes that have been demolished, people that are dead under the rubble, tens of thousands of human beings no longer alive because of what the Israeli government has chosen to do as a response to what happened on 10/7, while claiming that they're going after a group of Hamas militants and claiming that the Hamas militants force people to stay in certain places, which unfortunately is what causes these people to lose their lives, which in my opinion is a hunk of bullshit. But that's the party line, so that anybody who dies who's a civilian is either a complete accident or is blamable on Hamas, or both. And if you believe that stuff, I, as a new realtor, would like to sell you some beautiful waterfront property in the dead smack center of the Sahara Desert. And I'll give you a discount, 10% off just for you today, for having to endure my nonsense. So, and then again, we all have a different point of view. I like to say that there's what happens and there's the interpretation of what happens. And I have my take, and I've never once heard somebody say, hey, this is my take and my take is wrong. right? Everyone believes what they say is the truth. At some point, though, if we're open enough and we're honest with ourselves, we stay open to learning new things. And if something hopefully updates our information database, we update our point of view. You would hope that's the case. You go into something with good faith. Unfortunately, especially in this conflict, and it's hard to avoid this, people get what's in a confirmation bias. And they only go into rooms where people say what they want to hear, and they don't challenge their views. I went to the pro-Israel rally in DC. I went with a friend of mine who's Jewish, who has 6 amazing kids. We went out together in his minivan and had a nice afternoon of it. There were a lot of people there. My cell phone didn't work. And people say, well, gosh, Chip, you advocate for the Palestinian side of this issue. Why in the world would you go to a pro-Israel rally in Washington, D.C.? Why would you do that? Well, the point is to learn, to better understand, to get a better feel for what the climate is politically within a group of people, right? And why do I go on pro-Israeli lives, right? Well, maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but I also like to say, hey, I can be respectful in someone else's life with whom I disagree to show an indication of behavior. But also, I like to learn stuff too. And listen, I understand learning different points of view can be hard to hear because you may disagree with it. Your mind just wants to talk back, like, like what was jumping in earlier, that someone who was pro, he couldn't listen. He just had to jump in. And that's our nature, to want to just jump in. The real thing, though, the real skill to develop is to put aside what we believe, like don't even think what you want to say back. Just listen. Let it come in. Take it in. Think about it for a second. Chew it up a little bit and then respond. And that's what listening is like listening to something, like actually listening to it. Too many times though, people are just waiting to say what they want to say. There's no listening going on. And that's not gonna solve any problems, ever. So, Ofri, I'll tell you what, Ofri, are you in here? If you want to come up, and listen, Ofri, I don't know if you have enough followers. I think you have to have 200 followers to come up. But I'm not going to denigrate you. I'm not going to talk down to you. I'm not going to call you names. I'm not going to say that you're spouting nonsense. We're going to talk specific stuff. Ofri, when you says answer my question, I don't know if I must have missed your question. But you can use the word please. That tends to go a lot further than demanding language. But I didn't see the question, Ofri. You might want to restate it because sometimes I don't see all the comments. But if you want to come up and speak, Ofri, if that's your name, come on up. I'm not trying to suppress what you're trying to say or share. I'm happy to hear your point of view. We'll enjoy the lively exchange around it. Hopefully, we can all be nice to each other. So Ofri, do I condemn Hamas? I do not condemn Hamas. Oh my God, he doesn't condemn Hamas. Let me explain the use of language and how that's framed. So what that does is automatically put somebody in a position of saying, you must do this or else. And my point of saying that I don't condemn Hamas is because of this. I condemn behavior that harms civilians on 10/7. I condemn those actions that were carried out by members of Hamas. Be very specific about that. I condemn anybody who uses military power to unalive, to purposely kill and murder civilians. If there's provable examples of sexual assault, rape, whatever you want to call it, that took place on that day, I condemn that. I've asked many times, Ofri, maybe you can help me get over the hump here, for any kind of information that would substantiate some of these what I call more egregious claims of atrocities, raping, burning alive, removing of heads, these types of things. If there's evidence to show that happened, I'm more than open to looking at it. And once I've been able to confirm it, I'll speak to it truthfully. Now, I've had somebody tell me they have tons of evidence to support those claims. I said, okay, here's my Telegram. Send me whatever you have, videos, pictures, testimonials, whatever it may be. Nothing. This is NYC Joe. I'm not doing this to call Joe out in a mean way. I'm just saying I've been on Joe's lives. I think I've been more than fair and polite in the way I've done things. I'm not denying what happened on 10/7. I know a lot of horrible things happened on 10/7, and none of what went on in a response by the military that caused harm would have happened had it not been for 10/7. So I acknowledge all those points. I think that's fair to say. Somebody says that I deny 10/7 happened. That's absurd. What I'm saying is I don't have confirmation in terms of any evidence other than conjecture and hearsay that certain really egregious things happened on 10/7. And therefore, I can't deny it and I can't confirm it. To say that means I'm denying it is not fair. I just said I can't deny it. Okay? So if people do have evidence, now we've heard that the Israeli government put a compilation video together of what they claim is GoPro footage from the militants. And they put together like a 30, 40, 50-minute reel or whatever. They showed a compilation video to selected journalists to show how barbaric the attacks of that day were. Now, I've listened to to one of these journalists who was presented to talk about what his reaction was to having watched this compilation video. His name is Owen Jones. He's from the UK, but he lives in France. And he has a very reliable and trustworthy podcast, as far as I can tell. I think the guy seems to be straight up honest, as best I can tell. I don't think he has an agenda. And he said that he saw some awful things that day of people being unalived. Somebody keeps, is my video lagging? Somebody says my video's lagging. Maybe that's just for that one person. But he said he saw no evidence to support burning, raping, beheading, anything like that. None of those things. None of it. Zero, zilch, nothing. But what they'll say is H group or Hamas did raping, burning. And then they'll say, and journalists on that day saw a collection that made their stomachs turn, which would make you believe that the thing that they just said was included in the thing they just described. But it doesn't. It doesn't have that evidence. So the question comes down to, do you believe the Israelis and the way they frame information to the public? Or do you have reasons to doubt what they say? And you may say, well, I don't know either way. Well, I do, unfortunately. I would love to say good things about Israel, its media, its press, its military. I would love to. Trust me, I really would. They have to give me something to work with, to say something nice. The Israeli government spokespeople, the military spokespeople, and the politicians themselves are abject liars. They have a history of lying about everything under the sun. Things they don't even need to lie about, they lie about. Because it's what they do. Because when you have a system of behavior, systematized oppression, ethnic cleansing, there's no way to put nice words around that. So you have to completely obfuscate that or omit it or both from your public in order to have a fair chance at succeeding and continuing to perpetuate that without substantial pushback and analysis. Now, this isn't me saying this as some quote unquote anti-Semitic Jew hater, as people like to call me, or some Israel hater. This is coming from Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, former Chief of Staff of United States Secretary of Defense Colin Powell, who served from 2000 to 2006 in the Bush administration. And he knows a little bit about the Israelis because he dealt directly with the Israelis for 6 years directly. And here's what he said. I can play the video for you. He said, let me just make this clear. The Israeli government and its officials and its propaganda system, they are abject liars. They lie about everything. I never believe a word they say. These people are liars. They are liars. He said something that vociferous about that demonstrable. That's a huge statement to make. That's a pretty strong statement to make about an entire country, right? Why would he say that? He just got up on the wrong side of the bed? What if that's his real experience? That he just happened to experience lies after lies after lies. Eventually, like when somebody lies to you 5 or 6 times, you the 7th time go, well, maybe this time it's different. No, you're like, can't believe a single word this person says, right? So why are we to believe when somebody says, trust us, the video that we showed these journalists shows all this stuff? And then we talk to one of the journalists, he reports on what he saw, and he says, nope, none of that was in there. Not a single thing. Yeah, I saw some horrible stuff. I saw a grenade thrown into a safe room where the father was, and the 2 kids outside watched his dad die. He said that was the hardest thing for him to watch of all the things he saw. But none of it said about raping or burning or beheading or any of that stuff. None of that stuff. Now, am I for the attacks on civilians just because that wasn't proven? Of course not. But don't put words in my mouth to say that I deny the whole tragedy because of the fact that I can't get proof for the things that are the most egregious elements, right? That's not fair. So the point is, if there is demonstrable proof that show those things happening, which I don't believe did, based on what I've come to learn and what I understand to be the orders that were given to people that day, you never know that when orders are given to soldiers, they don't do things on their own accord that are atrocious. The U.S. did it in Vietnam. They were not ordered to go in and slaughter villagers in small Vietnamese villages. But because they couldn't find or fight the real enemy because of the tunnel system in the jungle, they got frustrated sometimes. They didn't know who was who. And so they just went in and slaughtered people. And also this is the anger and frustration of being in combat. So there may be some of that behavior that took place on the 7th. I don't know. But from what I understand was the mission was to go out and get intelligence, engage with Israeli soldiers, and bring back as many hostages as you can along the way. That's my understanding of the mission. But I don't know for sure. So they did. They brought back hostages, right? Now, along the way, they killed civilians. I've seen video of it myself. So I can say with absolute certainty, I condemn the killing of civilians. But I didn't see it being widespread. Maybe it was. Maybe it was way more than I've seen. I can't deny it, but I can't confirm it. But that's not denying the events of the day. So if anybody has evidence of that, please provide it. I have a Telegram. It's very simple. It's just Telegram, Chip Barnes. My name's Chip Barnes. And if you want to get to it, it's very simple. This is the shortcut. If you go to a web browser, type the letter T as in Tom, period, the word me, like, me, myself, and I, t.me/Chip Barnes. That's it. Anybody who has any evidence of what took place on the 7th that corroborates the most egregious allegations of rape, beheading, torture, mutilation, whatever you want to have it, okay? I did see a Thai worker who was nearly dead that was in somebody's residence on the ground, and there was somebody from Hamas that had a rake, like a hoe, and they were thrusting it at the person's neck when they were about to die. I did see that. It didn't cause anything to come off. I just saw it. They took a couple swings. So that I did see. So I can't deny that. So that somebody there used a tool to purportedly try to do that. But that's what I've seen with my own 2 eyes. I can share that as an honest human being. I'm never going to purposely lie to anybody here ever. If I see stuff that proves something, I'm going to tell you. Whether it, quote, makes the argument that I try to put forth work or not. Doesn't matter. Somebody says, so do your research. Ofri, listen. Ofri, let me just give you an example of research that I have done, okay? I've asked the same question to people on the Israeli lives. I've asked these questions in dialogues I've had with former IDF soldiers who have said, there's all this proof. Okay, send it to me. I'm happy to look at it. Tell me where to go to get it. Telegram groups, websites, whatever. I did. I went. I looked. I did all the work. Guess what? Not one example of direct evidence of these things having happened. Now, there's people talking, hey, my sister Jane knows her cousin Sue who had this happen to her. That statements made by people in third-party mode. That's not proof. That's allegations of what happened. Again, getting back to what I talked about Israel, they're notorious liars. It's not out of the realm that they would tell somebody from their side to lie about something to make the other side look bad. Happens all the time. But I can't confirm it, I can't deny it, but it's not proof. In addition, we have the example of somebody who was released from the H group, from Hamas. We've seen multiple releases of civilians by Hamas. Now, everybody says, well, Hamas is putting pressure on them. They're forcing them to look like they've been treated well. They're forcing them to say certain things because otherwise they're going to unalive them. Well, I call bullshit on that, because we know that in the first weeks of the conflict, when one of the older women were released, who was an Israeli citizen, she said in public, well after the Hamas group was nowhere near her, on camera, that she was treated decently, that she was given food, she was taken care of, her personal hygiene as a woman was taken care of, and she wasn't mistreated. That's the last thing that the Israeli government wants the world to hear. They want to paint these people as abject, bloodthirsty, psychopathic maniacs, with nothing other than being barbaric, criminals. And the fact that they could show a shred of humanity and treat people with decency is anathema to the point they want to try to get to the public. So my point is, every time the video evidence indicates one thing, but someone says something, oh, they were under pressure, oh, hey, listen, the evidence shows one thing. It's hard for you to convince somebody that something didn't happen when it's on camera and somebody says something that completely contradicts what you're saying. I hope you see a challenge with that. If I told you there's no such thing as a sunrise and you have the sunrise on camera the next morning and you say, well, Chip, what about this video? Oh, well, that's just some version of events. That's not it. No, that's the video. That's the video. The video doesn't lie. Okay. There's a woman, by the way, I don't know if you saw this video. I made a video about it. It's going a couple months back now. She was released after 54 days. Her arm had been injured when she was in the concert. She was one of those festival goers. and her arm got hurt. And there was actually a video of her in captivity showing that her arm had been bandaged, and she'd been. They said she was operated on by a veterinarian. That somehow, listen, that may have been the only doctor that could deal with injuries at the time. They may not have had a quote unquote person from the hospital, which is being bombed by Israel, to do that stuff, right? So the fact that they use a veterinarian to help sew somebody up, they call that barbaric. Well, is it better to leave her arm broken and do nothing? Do nothing? Yeah, again, Ulfrey, you keep saying that they taped everything and that yeah, you know what? That's what was presented in that compilation that the Israeli government claims shows all this stuff, right? I'm not saying that the H group did not kill civilians. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the more egregious allegations of sexual assault, rape, mutilation, burning, beheading, all those things, children, babies, I'm saying that the evidence for those things has not been presented on camera. There is video that substantiates some of the claims of civilians being killed. I got that. But for you to keep saying, Ofri, they videotaped everything. What the Israeli statement publicly has been is that all this evidence exists, it's on the cameras, they did it themselves, right? That's what you just said. But where's the evidence of the things that are being stated were done? When one reviews that evidence and doesn't find it, what is one to do? Okay, well, it didn't get on the GoPro camera. Okay, so every single incident of burning, of beheading, of graping, of sexual assault, none of that got on camera. It just conveniently was missed completely because in the mayhem of the day, they only filmed shooting people. Is that what you're saying? And if it is on tape, where the hell is it? I've looked. I've been to Hamas.com. I've been to all the Telegram groups I've been told to go to. I went through every single line on the Telegram group. I've asked people to send it to my Telegram politely. Guess what's come? Nothing. Not one single post. The evidence that was sent to me by a former IDF soldier that's supposed to contain all this stuff you're referring to, Ofri, didn't contain a single shred of direct evidence of any of those things having happened. Not one. I spent 6 hours of my time one Saturday digging through it out of respect for him because we had an hour-long conversation where he said he had definitive proof that these things happened. Okay, fair enough. It's my responsibility as a fair-minded person to look through that stuff, to give it the time of day, which I did. And guess what I found? Nothing. I wasn't trying to avoid finding it. I'm not trying to not do my research. I'm doing the hard work and I can't find it. Nobody to date, as far as I know, has any video proof or other physical evidence that these things occurred. Let's talk about the hostages for a second. We keep hearing that the hostages have been abused so badly and they've been terribly mistreated and underfed and tortured and impregnated and raped and all this other crazy talk. There's no evidence to support it. The very families of the women who claim to have been sexually assaulted on the 7th have said, no, our daughter wasn't sexually assaulted. That never happened. What are we supposed to do with that when the Israeli army claims that the military, then the government says, hey, this person was raped on this date. And the family goes, no, she wasn't. She's home safe and sound. What are you supposed to do with that? Are you supposed to just chalk it up to, well, it must have been confusing? No, the Israeli government lies like crazy. It's beyond anything you could even imagine. It's so pervasive. It's unthinkable. It's almost like dystopian how these people lie. Now, if Israel has evidence to substantiate these claims, let me be the first person to say I'll stand on top of the hilltops and scream it from the top of my lungs. I was wrong. My perception that they were lying about this was wrong. Here's the evidence to prove it. Here you go. My mistake. Wholeheartedly. I swear to God, I'm an honest actor. But to tell me that this exists, but believe me, in other words, trust me this time, the boy who cried wolf. Wolf, 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 no wolf. 17th time, there's a wolf. Well, how are you supposed to know the 17th time is the time it was being true? You don't. Okay, we have Brenda. Someone else has said, put me up, put me up, put me up, put me up, put me up. Okay, let's bring this person up. I can't even tell their name. It's written in, I think it's Arabic, I'm not sure. And we have Brenda, and we got to close it out.
Hello.
Hi.
I wanted to add on to something that you were talking about earlier. You were talking to a guy, I'm pretty sure his name was Dappy, I don't remember his name, when you were talking about how this isn't about Jews at all. And I 100% agree with that. I grew up in South Lebanon. I'm a Southern Lebanese, and I've been around resistance fighters and all these things in Israeli occupation my whole life. My great-grandfather died because of Israeli occupation. And trust me when I tell you, it's really not about any Jews. You can go to the town, if there's any Israelis in this live, you can go to the town of Mia Sharim. Mia Sharim is a town full of Hasidic Jews who are pre-948, who march, and the IDF is not allowed to go into that town, by the way, due to their jurisdiction. Not sure why. But anyways, they march in support of Gaza, they march in support of Palestine. And also besides that, trust me, I don't want to get into like personal things about my life here because this is a live and people, I don't want to talk about that stuff. But I know people who have spoken to resistance fighters in Lebanon, and these people do not care what religion you are. Even if another Muslim came to another Muslim, took his home, did these things to him, they will resist the same way Hamas is resisting now. It does not matter what you are. You do those things, you get the consequences. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And for those of you who think that, like Dora said earlier, the guest Dora, who is very lively, by the way, thanks for coming on, Dora, because you're interesting, if not anything else, unique. This is not about Islamic crusades. This particular issue, I can't say there are no groups that aren't fundamentally Islamic, supremacists or supreme, extremists. But this is not the case here. This is about dispossession of land and decency and oppression and just self-determination and having some version, not being humiliated on a day in, day out basis. I mean, imagine if you lived the way Palestinians are forced to live. Imagine what that must be like. It's got to suck. And when nobody pays attention to you for decade after decade, your friends and family are being killed. You have no political rights. You're shit on constantly by a more powerful group that has the backing of the biggest superpower in the history of the world. I can't even imagine how frustrating that must feel. And all you do is endure it, and believe in your religion and your creator and your deity. This suffering is necessary for your people for some reason. But if you just hold on long enough, the day will come when things will be better for your people. I don't know how you do that. That sounds horrible to me. However, I understand the Israeli perspective too. These are people that want to live lives in peace and security. I understand that. I mean, everybody wants that for their family, and they don't want to have rocket fire threatening them and all that. But it's unfair, I think, to just look at it from a one-sided perspective that, these people are just throwing rockets because they hate Jews. I think that's absurd, just like the person just said who came on. I appreciate that point of view. People are doing this because of what's been done to them, period, full stop. Not because they want to do something to others because of some abject hatred. And that's the biggest turning point for me. I didn't know this at all. In 1989, I learned about this issue. And I'm no expert, but I just happened to learn about it at a younger age. I was 21. And one of my college classmates just happened to talk about it in a senior thesis presentation for our political science graduate class. And I had no idea. I thought Israel was some, great ally of the United States, a homeland for Jewish people, and all these Arab people who were fanatics wanted to kill Jewish people. That's what I'd been told. And the reason why that's what happened on that day smashed my belief system was I didn't know there was a Gaza Strip. I didn't know there was a 67 war. I didn't know anything about the Nakba. I didn't know anything about the occupation. None of this stuff was ever talked about on US TV, ever. So of course I wouldn't know about it. And when I did learn the dynamics, I was shocked. I was like, what the hell? Now, you might say from Israelis to us, well, our security necessitates doing all these things. Therefore, we do what we do. It's unfortunate, right? And so most Israelis kind of look the other way. But that's bullshit, because if you were living under that, you wouldn't be able to look the other way. You'd be living it. And therefore, that's obviously, you have to be able to see things from both sides in life. I see the Israeli perspective. I just disagree with it because I think the motivations are not pure. It's about land, it's about control, it's about exploitation, it's about self-serving Zionist political settler ideology over decency and peaceful coexistence. That's how I see it. You can disagree with that and think I'm crazy, but I have no reason to side with one side or the other. I don't know anybody. I don't have friends or family. I'm not married to anybody. I have no one's paying me. I've been accused of making me. Listen, man, I'm not getting paid a dime to believe what I believe. I've been talking about this for 30 years. Why would I all of a sudden, change my point of view and be like, I'm getting paid by Qatar, I'm going to say this. It's absurd. Now, there are people who get paid to go to the pro-Israel rally in D.C. Kids were offered $250 a piece, college kids, to show up. I don't know how many did. There are people here on TikTok that are paid to speak on behalf of the Israeli government. The Israeli government has a very specific and proactive campaign of well-funded communications processes that include advocacy by different people that are on different apps, different accounts, The Palestinians are blamed for having this. They don't have any of that. They don't have the money to have this stuff. Are you kidding me? If I wanted to make money off of my advocacy work, I'd be working on behalf of Israel, because that would be the way to make money, because that's where the money is. Let's face it. Okay, so this person, Ofri, has been saying all these comments that proved you are lying. You're a liar. I tell you what, Ofri, let's do this. If you want to come up and talk, I'm happy to continue to have you here. But all you do is keep chirping these little silly sort of generalized replies. We need to be specific when it comes to our criticism of different points of view. It's fine to be critical, but these general statements, I could call you a moron, right? What would that do for the dialogue? Nothing, right? It's just a silly ad hominem attack. You saying you are so wrong. About what? About what? Let's pick one thing. Just say your interpretation of 1967 is incorrect for ABC. You can do it across 2 messages, right? That's a fact-based, logical argument to say why someone's wrong. But this crap about just lie. Come on, man, or woman, whoever you may be. Anyway, I think Brenda's been waiting patiently, and then I got to take the dog out who needs to go to the bathroom shortly here.
Hey, Chip. Good afternoon. I just wanted to point out something for everybody. This argument, we keep going back and forth with this person, and I wanted to remind everybody that it does not matter if the H group did everything and worse of what they claim to, the Zionists claim that they did. That does not justify the response that's under international law. It does not justify the response of what's happening right now. So there is no an eye for an eye under international law. So even if all of those things did happen, the response needs to be in accordance to international law, which everybody can agree that it's not. So the disproportionality of what's happening is it's completely against international law, and it doesn't matter. So the fact that that they keep bringing up, well, they did this and they did that and this, and that, because they want to convince people, oh, so it's okay to kill, or unalive as many children and bomb, flatten the entire Gaza Strip and displace so many people and basically kick them out into the Sinai Peninsula. It does not matter. So we need to start reminding people, because we go back and forth with them, but it does not matter under international law. And if, Ofri keeps saying, they are the most moral army in the world, then they need to be following in accordance to the law, which they absolutely are not, because everybody is saying it. The ICJ, which, good God, I don't know why they're taking so long. But yeah, just...
Well, Brenda, real quick. So Ofer's last comment, real quickly, was that the Hamas group is the one who committed war crimes. Do you think that Israel ever commits war crimes?
So my question is, does Israel commit war crimes, or the H group?
Israel.
Oh, I think every day, every time that they drop a bomb, I think they've been committing war crimes since before 1948. But also my question is, they talk, because that guy, I forget the name of the guy, but I know his last name is Levi, that spokesman. He is so frustrating. I just want to...
Eylon, E-Y-L-O-N, Eylon Levy.
Eylon Levy, okay. He always very purposely and methodically uses the G word, the G-side word all the time. The H group does the G-side. So my question to them is, why don't they take them to the ICJ then? What's stopping them? They are accusing them of committing G-side against Israel all the time. Why aren't they doing that? Because they know they're not going to win, because that's going to put the spotlight under them. And so absolutely, Israel has been doing it for a very long time. I mean, I experienced the wrath of the IDF myself personally in Israel as an American, So I think that we need to stop arguing, and we just need to start reminding everybody, it does not matter what the H group did or did not. We need to stop trying to prove that they did it, because that's just buying into this idea that if they did all these things that they're being accused of, then that's a justification for what's happening. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they did it or not. So that was just the point that I wanted to offer.
Yeah, I think someone in the comments just said, Yasser Arafat used Palestinian women and children for self blowing up, self explosions. Yeah, listen, Linda, I appreciate those criticisms of the Palestinian resistance are fair. I think that anybody who cares about human life would look at those tactics as being abhorrent and would call it terrorism. And it's understandable that people would be critical of that. And the families that are directly affected, of course, obviously are going to be horrified that one of their family members was dead because of some act of some person they think is crazy. And I think, again, the question we always have to ask ourselves is within what context do these things occur? I'm glad that those kind of things are no longer happening. They happened for a period of time. The separation barrier was built and the security became ultra strict. And therefore, it's stopped those attacks from. And also, I think that the tactics being employed by the Palestinian leadership have decided not to include those for a variety of reasons, because I think that just doesn't have the effectiveness they would hope. So, yeah, I agree. I'm against any civilian being harmed ever by anybody in any time that's done purposely. And it is a war crime, by the way, to purposely kill a civilian in combat. So whether you do it with a belt around your chest and you blow them up, whether you drop a bomb from above, there's no difference in terms of how the bomb gets there. If it goes off and kills civilians purposely, it's terrorism. Now, in one case, it happens to happen with a civilian sneaking in someplace, going into a crowded cafe and detonating it. In other cases, you have a U.S. supplied bomb from a U.S. supplied aircraft being piloted by an Israeli pilot who's ordered to drop said bomb on a building that has nothing to do with combatants and blows up human beings. Both are terror. One's done in a military uniform, the other one's done in a civilian thing with a vest strapped to somebody's stuff. There's no difference in those two acts. Brenda, sorry, I'm gonna get you off there.
Yeah, I did want to address one more thing. Everybody keeps talking about, I said this on your live before, everybody keeps talking about like, oh, we don't care about the grades or this and that. Stop weaponizing crimes against women. Like that is not, I don't condone it. I've had crimes committed against me. I've been assayed. It doesn't matter. Again, it's the same argument that I made. It doesn't matter what the age group did. It doesn't justify what's happening. It doesn't matter what happened. Okay, it doesn't matter what happened, and the fact that we are weaponizing what's happening to what happens to women as if our countries care that much about us anyways. Like our affairs are not in order at home, so we need to stop using these crimes against women as a justification because we are so moral ourselves when it comes to women. So that justifies us, saying all these things. And again, like you've said many times, Chip, there is absolutely no evidence of what's happening, whereas there is evidence that a girl in the West Bank had to be operated on because she was completely torn apart after having in her nether areas because she was G-raped. She was G-raped in custody of the IDF. That's actual proof. She had to be sewn up, and that is actual hard evidence, whereas none of that has ever been submitted by Israel that the age group happened. So that makes my blood boil that people are using that because there is no evidence of that. Stop using women. And that's all I have to say because I got to go. Thank you, Chip, for having me on.
Hi, Brenda. Take care. You must be a mother. I think Brenda's a mother. I think we're clear about that. She got the kid on there. Yeah, I find the standards to be completely unfair. To say on the one hand that somebody who goes across in a vest and goes into a cafe and unalives 65 people, which is horrible, horrific, that someone who's in a military fighter jet that's provided by the U.S. and a bomb that's signed by a celebrity in the United States that's dropped on a knowing civilian target that has nothing to do with militancy, which the Israelis claim they don't do, which I would say the whole world sees that they do, which is an absurd claim for them to make, is no different, except for the numbers of people that get killed in total, which unfortunately by Israel is way, way more. It's disproportionate. So these arguments that are made that one's morally okay and the other one's not is just bullshit because it works for your side of the argument. So anyway, I have to step out with the dog. I'll take a little bit more time here, but I have to close up the live in about 15 minutes, 4:30. Been going on since about 12:30. So real quickly, let's bring on Enjoy Life. I like that nice name. How you doing?
Hi, Chip, and everybody. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity and platform. I'm Canadian, and I just wanted to introduce myself. That my entire life we were kind of pro-Israel and thought that those are the good guys and so on. And things, at least for me, have changed since October 7, and the eyes are open now, and I see many others on the same side, kind of now understanding and seeing what is really happening, not only in that part of the world, but also in our countries. And what's going on with our government and so on. That aside, I kind of have some question, maybe you can help me in audience, that I see a lot of protests happening in Western, if we call it Western countries, pro-Palestine, and I even see a lot of Jews protesting also against what Israel is doing and whatnot. There are a lot of good things happening, like boycotts and so on. People go to ports to disrupt the arms shipment to Israel. And what I don't see in the picture is the people of the Arab and Muslim countries demanding their government. I'm especially talking about like Saudi Arabia, MBS, these wealthy ones that they have a lot of influence and their oil flows to these countries that are funding this war and enabling Israel to do what is doing. I don't see that happening. I don't understand why people don't go and I'm talking peaceful stuff, not violence, to get their leaders and governments to change course. And when I ask them that why that's not happening, they say, well, it's complicated. There's a dictatorship. They arrest people. Well, freedom it doesn't come cheap, and it's not easy. That's the price for it. And I just don't understand that. And I don't mean to be critical of the people who are victim. My comment is not towards Palestinians. I think the whole world should support Palestinians. They are the real victims, and everybody should support them in my mind if you care about humanity. But I'm talking about people sitting in their, lavish lifestyle and homes and, having a nice life and doing nothing, but they are kind of closer to this. And that's really something I don't understand, because they can have a huge influence and huge impact on this. By very peaceful means. They can disrupt this in days, so they cannot continue. And I hope you can shed some lights on this, and I'll be listening to you and other people. But yeah, please enlighten me of why this is not happening and how we can change that.
Damn it, I'm sorry, I was on mute. You guys didn't hear a word of that, did you? Damn, I had a good response too. Okay, I'll boil it down quickly. The problem is the U.S. media. I'm sorry, the U.S. system. The U.S. system supports Israel. The media obfuscates this issue like it did for me and many of our fellow Americans for decades, as well as in the Western world. They get a very one-sided picture of this. The reason why the Israelis are so pissed about this is because the world is now seeing with their own two eyes through things like TikTok and Instagram what's actually happening. There's no more BS to be had about this. Our own two eyes can see the slaughter and the abject cruelty of the Zionist regime, which they've been doing this for forever. This is just one little, it's not little, but this is just one example of what they've been doing since their inception. And so the problem is, if the U.S. was not supporting this, the problem is that the U.S., we can't change our government to make them not support this. I think any of us who have gotten pissed off, earlier somebody named Nadia was here and she was angry and she's like, we have to protest more, we have to do more. I have bad news for Nadia and those who want to see these things change. They're not going to change, nor will tax policy towards the rich, nor will the working class get a fair shake. And all these other issues that are protected by political cover from a bad system, they're not going to change until the power structure that protects that political cover changes. And that's the biggest problem in the world right now, is that the powerful, the corporate structures, the moneyed interests control everything. And by the way, it is so damn cold outside. It's like 20 degrees or something. It's icy and cold and not too much fun. But in fact, I'm going to take the dog back inside for a second. Hey, dog, come here. I'm not as tough as you. It's like Chicago here, man. It's crazy. Anyway, it's frustrating because I feel the same anger. I feel the same frustration. But I've come to this unfortunate realization that without some major upheaval, which could be the form of a world war, it could be the form of a nuclear attack, it could be the form of some sort of alien thing, it could be the form of some electromagnetic pulse that kicks out electricity. None of this is going to change. Business as usual will not lead to any changes. I know it's frustrating for people to hear that because I want to have hope that things can get better. But I also have to be a realist. And let's face it, the United States is in a pickle. And I think short of an uprising, which I don't think is going to happen, I don't think much is going to change, which is very sobering, right? So the question is, when will people's anger, like Nadia and I feel, when will that cause us to do more than just the basic things that we're told we can do to change the circumstances? Fair question, right? Everyone has to look at that and say, well, gosh, how much disruption and how much sacrifice am I willing to go through to see some of these things change? And I think the answer right now is not that much. Even for people that are most angry about it, we don't want to be out in the street or in jail or anything like that, right? I don't blame anybody for that. I get it. So I think that with as much political pressure as can be brought to bear is a good thing. I'm supporting somebody who's an independent candidate for the state of New York in Senate. Her name's Diane Sayre. In fact, she's having a symposium tomorrow up in New York State, New York City. I'm not going to be able to go because I'm not feeling well, but I'm going to be supporting. I'll be on Zoom. I'll be talking at the event. I hope you'll check it out. If you're curious, you can go to Sayre for Senate, SARE for Senate.com. That's Diane's website. I'm sure it'll be listed there. But let's be real. Let's say Diane gets elected. She's going for the Senate seat, not Chuck Schumer's seat, but Kirsten Gillibrand. If you know who she is, she's the seat that Hillary Clinton used to have. She's a Democrat. She's part of the establishment. I'm sure she's a nice woman, but she's doing the bidding of the establishment like everybody else does. So let's say Diane gets elected, which will be great. I hope she does, but I'm not optimistic because it's such a hard system to break it. But let's say she did. So now we have one U.S. senator who's talking against the war machine, who's talking against the financial system, who's talking. It's good to have that voice on the stage, right? That's the big thing. But will it change in terms of the dynamics? No. The lobbyists are still there. The revolving door that gives people jobs when they get out or get paid, all that crap's still there. Money as speech under Citizens United, corporate personhood, tax policies that are terribly unfair, allocations of money that get recycled through the war contractors. That's still going to be going on. The debt, all this crazy stuff that's out of control is going to continue to be out of control until it can't be any longer. And no one election is going to change that. Not even 10 elections are going to change that. It's going to have to be some other kind of struggle. I mean, I say going through elections is like voting. Let's say you're a member of a big company, you work for them, and you want a better salary or more vacation, and you cast your vote each year for the ownership to give you a better deal. Just ignore it, right? Who cares? But if every single one of you in the company gets together, 10,000 of you, let's say 8,000 of the 10,000 employees say, we're not going to work anymore unless you give us a better deal. Well, that'll stop them in their tracks. They have to deal with you now, right? So our system is that they keep people divided. They have this false left-right chasm where people hate Trump, they hate Biden, they're fighting with each other. The real enemy is above, not beside you. And they convince people that it's your enemy across from you that's the problem. That's where the problem lies. And if you just vote for the right person, then everything will get fixed eventually. And that's bullshit. And I think we should probably know it after years and years. I've been around now for what? I'm in my 6th decade, going into my 7th. And obviously when you start to see this stuff for what it is, you realize this is a bullshit system, right? It's all a big pageant, I like to call it. But I think voting is a big pageant. And yeah, it does matter for some things. And the more local you get, the more impactful voting can be as far as what affects your life. But at the federal level, it's all bought and paid for. It's all bought and paid for. Let's see what Sarah has to say. How are you doing today, Sarah?
Hi, Chip. Thank you for having me on. I can't even remember my original point that I wanted to say. I'm just dumbfounded with everything. right now. I'm just, you know, it's disheartening when you see people turning a blind eye. That's what I'm most angry about. And I think what you were just saying about dismantling this structure and there being no real difference between left and right, you're absolutely right. And this is decades and decades in the making. I mean, if you go right back to the Ottoman Empire before World War One, anybody who's tried to oppose AIPAC, they've disappeared. So it's just like, what do? We can't all come together because we're not even all together right now. You have people either on the side of Israel not willing to at all, or you have the people who are just comfortable with their life, don't want to see what we're seeing, which really, really angers me. I just feel a little bit hopeless, you know, but I'm still going to carry on posting. And I think everybody, you know, still needs to try and use their voice, no matter how hopeless it seems.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you there. Yes. I think somebody in the comments said, and this is not my language, this is somebody else, says, blow up all of Israel and America. I don't agree with that at all. I think that's the last thing we want to do, is to do things like that are violent. But I do think we can use our power non-violently to achieve goals in ways that were done in prior generations. But this one's going to take more than prior generations because it's bigger. These are bigger, more pervasive issues than were dealt with back then. So we know in the civil rights movement, people got out and protested in the many millions, which is good. I think in this case, it's going to take many dozens of millions of protesters, people stopping work, people not paying their bills, or not paying for, you know, anything other than essential goods, you know, basically not paying their taxes, refusing to go to work, and organizing in such a way that blocks the arteries of traffic, blocks everything in terms of the circulatory system of the capital system. That's the only thing other than violence, which I think the establishment will respond to, is a total stoppage of their machine, which they have a very nice sort of monopoly on right now. And other than that, I think that it's going to be business as usual. And I think the possibility of that happening, of people getting together and doing those things, is next to zero. So therefore, I think that unfortunately what we're seeing now, we're going to get more of. And when we decide, we being the power of the people, somebody said the power of the people is more than the people in power. Right now it isn't. It may be there hidden away, but it's not. The power that we, the people, have is not being used and brought to bear in a way that makes enough of a difference. And therefore, we see the status quo maintained.
Would it make a difference if, I mean, you know, this is what I'm saying. Not everybody's on the same page. Everybody has to be on the same page, or there needs to be enough people on the same page to make a difference. I currently live in Massachusetts. I'm not allowed to because I'm not a citizen as of yet, but would it make a difference if everybody locally voted for their independence?
Well, nothing will not make any difference, okay? There's always awareness and raising things, but in terms of third-party candidates, they don't really do too well because of how the money and power is distributed right now. Like it or not, the U.S. has a two-party system that's so firmly entrenched that even efforts from those who are within the party structure, like Bernie Sanders, for example, 2016 being the best example, he was basically shut out from the ability to compete for the Democratic nominee for president by the DCCC, which is the Democratic Campaign Committee, which raises all the money. Hillary Clinton and others conspired to disenfranchise Bernie Sanders, someone who's already an insider and has been part of the establishment for many decades, and he was cut out. So what do you think they're going to do to somebody who's not even in the establishment? They're going to completely, it enables them to completely keep out anybody who can bring it in.
Yeah.
The system is set up to exclude people like that. That's why it exists the way that it does. So the third party system in the United States, we're never going to have a third party, in my opinion. It's very unlikely we're going to have a third party that's going to be able to displace or change any of these variables. Both parties are unfortunately corrupted. They're co-opted to the core by wealthy interests and other special interest groups, and the system is the problem, not the people.
Yeah. Did you see the video of the I can't say this right, the fraudulent slip of Joe Biden when he said our. Yeah.
Our
Our
operation.
operate, yeah. You know that they really are all the same. It is very disheartening, and you know it's always the US and the UK antagonizing. It always is, and I laugh because I'm so hopeless right now. It's I just wish I knew what to do. I'm seeing these things I hear about last night. The IDF set a dog on a 4-year-old kid. Who does that? Are these people not seeing what we're seeing, or do they just not care?
Well, the Zionists are willing to do things that I think, let's put it this way. Barbaric behavior is not exclusive to people who are Zionists, but the Zionists have a particular way of doing things that are particularly barbaric and pervasive over long periods of time. Who does that? They did that. They do those things all the time, though. They do horrific things, and they try to paint it in things like security and other people being terrorists, which, of course, is absurd. So the fact that others have been told that story, that the IDF is this moral force, that Israel is this force for good, and everything they do is about security and peace, is of course, absolute bullshit, unfortunately. There is no simple way out. That's one of the problems, Sarah. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you being here. Have a very nice day. It's challenging, right? Nobody wants to be a Debbie Downer. It's always good to do what we can do. So what we can do is try to get people in who are good. I think that Diane Sayre, who's a third-party candidate for the Senate of New York, federal senator, is a better choice than Kirsten Gillibrand. So I'm going to try to help her get elected. But do I think that she's going to solve any problems? Probably not. Do I think she's going to get elected? Probably not. The system is stacked against anybody who's coming in from the outside. The amount of money it takes to run a campaign nowadays for a Senate is probably $15 to $20 million. Nobody has that kind of money. So what do you have to do? You have to go to wealthy corporate interests and beg for the money. What does that do? Now you're accountable to the wealthy corporate interests. It's a no-win situation, right? So what do you do? Okay, we have Zakaya, and then that's going to be it for today. Last guest.
Hi, it's Zakia.
Hi, Zakia.
I was just from back when Ryan, the guy that spoke, I think before Sarah, he had his name up in Arabic. It was Ryan. I think he was talking about or asking why people in the Arab countries weren't going out doing protests, etc. And as far as I know, they are, but I just he wanted to know, he wanted to ask why they weren't doing it like we are doing here, maybe in the UK or in America. And the problem is the system is different. Anybody that gets arrested in America or in the UK, yeah, they might have a record, but if they get arrested abroad, it's a total different ballgame. There's a lot more to lose. So I think that sort of answers a little bit his question. But the question, like, I've been on a march today, and I had to travel 2 hours, so it's taken me the whole day to go to this march. And it's just surprising that during the march, how many people are just sat there eating, drinking coffee, that possibly could be on the march. And I don't understand that. If I can travel to their city and march for their cause, I don't understand why they wouldn't give up 1 or 2 hours of their time to do the same. So, but yeah, thank you for having me speaking.
Sure.
Bye.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate it very much, Sky. Yeah, it's frustrating when you're so aware of a situation and you want others to care about it or get involved. And let's face it, most people are busy with their lives, doing other things that they're used to out of the inertia of their life, as we have been in other situations before. So it's unlikely to expect a lot of people to kind of step outside their lane. Sorry, I was outside and the cold air makes your eyes water. So yeah, it's tough. Oh, here's the dog. She just got into the cat food. Yeah, it's tough. It's hard to sit back and watch as other people sort of live their lives normally. I think Nadia was saying that. She had invited somebody to come on to Eric Warsaw. He's another TikToker who does a lot of lives, who I like a lot. Eric's got a good panel, does a good job. And the person refused. This is a lawyer who's supposed to be like a human rights lawyer and works with the New York Times or something like that, investigative journalist or something like that. And they were just, oh, I don't have time for that. I don't have the mental bandwidth, is what she said. And listen, in fairness, not that I agree with that, but I think most people, hey, even myself, let's face it, it's stressful to think about things. First of all, you can't control, right? Let's face it, most of us have no control over this, so that's frustrating. But a lot of times it just stirs us up, right? It gets us very anxious and upset. And I can understand why somebody would say that. And I don't agree with looking the other way, but I also understand it. I think a lot of people have taken that point. My whole family doesn't want to hear about any of this stuff, doesn't want to hear a word of what I have to say about anything ever. In fact, for the most part, they've kind of disowned me, which is sad. But that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to get on social media. I thought that no one would want to listen to me. And I'm very glad that there is an audience out there who likes to hear about this stuff. It's just not my family. And that's understandable. So I just let you know, I've been on today since about 12:30 p.m. So it's 4:30. It's about 4 hours for me. It's been a good stretch. Just to let you know, for those of you who've come on to here, we had about 400 people earlier, about 2:30 now. We have a lot of great discussions. There was someone named Dora who was on earlier. If you don't know who Dora is, she's a very passionate, sort of loud woman who she says she's former Muslim who's now converted to Judaism, who's very pro-Israel. She was on. She spoke for a bit. She's entertaining at best. So this gets recorded. It'll be uploaded to my YouTube and my Rumble channels within an hour or two if you want to check out the recording. All of my lives going back to mid-December of last year are on my YouTube and Rumble channels. Every single I was doing these things 6 days a week since mid-December, actually since mid-November. So it's been a while. I've changed my schedule, just so you know. My new schedule, for those who don't know, is every Wednesday night from 8 p.m. Eastern time to 10 p.m. Eastern time, and every Saturday from 12 noon until this afternoon, about 4 o'clock. So that's the new schedule. I'm no longer doing 6 days a week. It was just a little much. Plus, I have to find a way to pay the bills. You know how that works. And TikTok and donations are great, but it's a very small amount. So got to go do other stuff. So that's what I'm doing. So as far as the rest of this goes, there's a link tree in my bio. There's some groups that I've put in there from Telegram. If you don't know what Telegram is, the way you access the link in my bio, it just has a clickable link. If you're in the United States, it says Linktree Chip Barnes with a little link next to it. Click on that. It'll launch up my list of stuff. If you're not in the United States, in order to get to that list of stuff, you have to type in to your web browser the text that I put in my bio. It says Linktree Chip Barnes. Just type that in. It'll take you there. It has my other social media, including the YouTube and Rumble channels I mentioned. Please follow that, and you'll get notified of the videos. And then also, if you want to help out, I have some donation links to the bottom. I have a simple $5 a month Patreon, not much, but I'm trying to make a bunch of smaller followers, and eventually I can do this full time if I can get it going that way. That's my goal. So if I missed anybody's comments, by the way, I know there's a lot of interesting things said in the comments. I know some people are very pro-Israel. They watch these lives, and they're probably frustrated, just as I am when I watch pro-Israeli lives sometimes. But I do appreciate everybody's comments. I try not to exclude anybody's voice. As long as people are respectful and don't interrupt, I give people ample time to share their views, and hopefully we can go back and forth without personal attacks. So I really appreciate everybody being here. Thanks a lot for today. I'll see you all again on Wednesday. I just want to let you know I have a special guest. I'll be putting out a promo video. But Eddie Liger, he's probably better known to you as Midwestern Marks. If you don't know who he is, he's got a great TikTok channel with 200,000 or 300,000 followers. Good guy, interesting guy. He's a wrestling coach. I think he's from the Midwest somewhere. We'll get Eddie on here to talk about things like cooperatives and workers and how things work for capitalism versus socialism versus communism, these other political systems that are interesting to look at. So it should be a fun night. So Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, Eddie Liger will be my guest. He's probably going to come on around 8:30 p.m. if you want to check it out. So I will see everybody then. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you for spending some of yours with me.